search. I wonder if he.
I mean, right here is they use J Brown.
Okay.
So you could certainly piggyback off of. This was in 2025, so they've literally.
Oh, okay.
They J Brown Professional Group. I think that's their group. This is gonna be
At the airport, you can an electronic device yet.
no, do I get one?
Yeah, it's probably gonna be an Apple product like I got those, so if you're not an Apple person, I wish you luck.
Oh, well then I'll just use my own.
That might help you.
Yeah.
I keep everything airport on.
That's smart. Maybe I'll get myself a Windows, like a Surface Pro.
Sorry, that's the wrong J Brown. So that's not that. I can't piggyback there.
You have snacks in that bag? Oh, yeah. So you got your hands full now.
Yeah.
It's just so bizarre
I
because
love it.
we've got
I
Do you
have
do anything else?
people in the
so
procurement
I
department.
owned an ice cream store. For my brother
Right there
passed
in
away.
front of the shore?
Not Whole Cow. We owned Captain Cone out by Captain
Fractional
Cone where Winn Dixie was.
Okay.
But when my brother passed away last year, I just couldn't do it without him, so
As like an engineering.
I closed that down. But I just opened.
Sorry to hear that.
It was a very unexpected part of the
So how long have you been here?
here in Spain, obviously. About,
Well, yeah.
I think this December will be year 11. Massachusetts?
I mean, you need finances, procurement,
Yeah, I
supervision,
worked.
Change of venue.
Yes.
and
A
facilities
great
management.
change.
And I think
I
with
worked at a little
three,
Catholic college at 10 years.
as I was thinking about it, that's, you don't want to hire
Research engine.
Yes.
executive
Yeah.
You've seen this.
Just gotta hire some people. So here's one, 2022, so we can go find city employees, we can find out who they're there. Who they chose.
Still on that one.
Is that for an airport thing?
No,
Or just for
executive
firm?
search
Oh,
commissioners.
okay.
So,
Full range of mission services, planning, public safety. So there's,
Yeah,
it's up
there's-
to you.
yeah.
You can do an RFP or you can try and find one you think. It's up to you.
I would think
Claim to be done there.
the best
That's
thing
included.
would be to just do one for
Couldn't answer.
airport,
Totally can.
just so
And
that we're very,
it makes sense.
because they're gonna have
Shouldn't take-
contacts,
It shouldn't take
Yeah,
too long.
none of it was.
I mean, 30
my
days,
father was
30,
at a
45
store
days. So we could probably have it out on the street,
There's nothing
like by the, right after the next board meeting.
I think you're
so my
right.
father was
And then you need to give 30, 45 days for,
Yeah, bids to come in.
and then you need, that firm's gonna
So
say
I'm
you need
sure
3 or
it,
4 months. That goes back.
it makes you mad as well.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
makes me mad.
And then have to lie about that.
That's the point.
Okay, I really don't want to use the gavel, so it's 5:10. So we will now call, do we have, oh, should have looked over that. You're the most important person in the room right now, so. All right, so we will call to order the budget meeting for Monday, October 13th. This is the first public hearing for the FY 25-26 budget. We will start with opening remarks. Actually, we'll start with public comment, I guess, first on this. So any public comment on the budget? Yes, please, sir. Just from your chair is fine. You don't even have to stand up.
Just one very simple. About 10 or 11 years ago, this airport got off the Echo One tax rolls. In other words, there was no taxation of the county's residents for the airport.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? All right, no other public comment. We'll open it for opening remarks from the board members, and I'd like to give deference to either Ms. Cashman or Ms. Leota to, if you've got any remarks.
Yes, I'm concerned about increases that are based on vague statements around safety, and especially concerned because of the last budget year that we just rolled out of. We had anticipated income that ended up not happening. So not only were we over our budget on a number of items last year, we were having a shortfall in expected revenue. So I think we're in a bit of a crunch, and I think we should be careful about increasing expenditures without a really good detailed basis.
Thank you. Ms. Cashman?
I think it's also important to notice as we go through this, and I'm sure our staff will fill us in as we go. The budget that was prepared last year was done mostly from an outside company, and some of those numbers I think we found as the year went on were pulled from places they perhaps should not have been pulled from. And so some of our differences are going to look a lot bigger than they kind of should had our budget been prepared properly the first time last year. But I think that they've put together a great budget for us to go through and pick through.
To the newest board members, any just opening remarks? And we can get into more detailed questions if you have as we go through it, but just opening.
I had quite a few concerns, particularly staffing costs went from 1.4 million to 2 million, and that's a pretty large increase in the budget. Now I understand our projected is going to be 1.67 or something, so what we're actually going to spend this year might be a little higher. I asked Mr. Pittman about it, and I guess a lot of that is investment into future so that we can get more grant writers and things, so it would be an investment for the future. But basically, roughly a 40% increase in staffing budget is just seems a little bit excessive. And our net operating before depreciation and grants, I think went from budgeted almost 1.5 million last year to like 800,000 this year, which I don't want to be grant reliant. So that's a big concern, and I don't anticipate grants will be so large in the future as they were for the last administration. So I do very much appreciate that we're keeping the millage at nothing. That's what we ought to do. But I do have a couple concerns with the budget.
Okay.
I have a couple others too, but I'll yield for now.
Yeah.
I think one important point, especially with the payroll, is it is my understanding at the last meeting where we had a full board, Ms. Laquadera brought up that there were some things that were not done properly, one of which is that salaries were subject to board approval. I don't know exactly what she meant by that, what the scope was, if it was every salary or what, but that there had been some salaries that had people that were not approved by the board, and that they are still not approved by the board. So I think that we don't have that information. It's not on the agenda, but I think that needs to be taken care of at the Wednesday meeting, because that may drill down into where is all this expenditure going, and does it make sense? Like, for example, if we don't want to be grant reliant, why hire a full-time grant writer? Maybe the board doesn't see the wisdom in that, when we can certainly get that expertise from outside on an as-needed basis.
Jared, do you have any opening remarks down there?
No, sir, I agree with, the caveat on Mario's, I mean, I'm looking, and it's 1.9, so it's $570,000 difference. So that's a tremendous amount of money, and I'd like to also explore that and see where that money is going as well. And there's a couple other things. When I look at the outside communications for the last couple of years, you're looking at 230,000, 248,000, and now we're down to proposing 7,000. So, Courtney, if you don't mind, when we get to that point, kind of explaining, I mean, that's pretty good decrease in money right there. But I mean, I'm not, just curious. I mean, you know, I've had a week to look at this budget, and I'm sure that there's gonna be more questions as we move forward. Exactly, and I'm sure you're gonna be able to provide some of those answers for us.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
1.99.
Yeah.
My just quick remarks, sir, there is no way that I would ever vote to add a millage at all. So, and I think you've kind of heard that this current iteration of the board will figure out other ways to fund, you know, necessary improvements in operation, but we're not asking St. Johns County residents to pay anything into the airport. So you could sleep well at night knowing that, at least for this current makeup. I do share a lot of the concerns that were mentioned. You know, my first thing when I looked at this, I went to the bottom line to figure out, okay, what's our rainy day fund? How are we handling objects that, you know, pop up? You know, I know that the rating agencies, you know, like 6 months would be like really, really good. I mean, 9 months is like really strong, but if we could start building up to having, you know, 6 months of cash reserves, we also need to understand, I mean, we just approved, you know, a road. We know that there's other development. We know that there's maintenance and repairs. So I do have concerns that, you know, what are we going to do from a budget perspective to focus on what really matters, and that's providing an airport that existing tenants and the users of the airport can be happy and proud of, as well as, you know, providing for the community the job creation. We have a lot of job creating tenants at the airport. The last thing that we want to do is pass a budget that is not focusing on ensuring that, you know, all of the users of the airport are happy, that they can see the growth, and that we are growing. So ready to roll up our sleeves and like, let's do that. You know, part of that is going to be, I think, Ms. Leota, as you mentioned, you know, revenue projections weren't where they needed to be. We probably need to get creative on how we can generate a little bit more revenue without losing kind of the feel that we have, and get better. I mean, the last thing that we want is a budget that under predicts our proposed revenue. I'd be happy if we like overestimated and we just crushed it out of the park, you know, 7%, 5% over, but we cannot be, you know, under projections on revenue. So with that, the first item after opening remarks was millage. So is there any discussion on the millage by the authority?
Motion that we accept the 0 millage.
Second.
All right. Any discussion or debate on that? Are we in a good posture? All right. The attorneys say we don't have to raise taxes. All right. So seeing no other discussion, all those members in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. The motion carries. 0 millage rate. And I guess, do we need to, does that include us adopting this resolution, or do we need a separate?
So the resolution as drafted, give me one quick second. No, that millage rate, that resolution works.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. All right, so the next item is on the proposed budget. I think what would be important to do is first allow, you know, Mr. Pittman for you to present the budget, and then we can have some questions. So what I would ask maybe is, let's let Mr. Pittman go through the whole budget, and then we'll save questions that will go down afterwards for the back and forth. So Mr. Pittman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to introduce to you my controller, Connie Worley. She's been working very hard at this budget. I must say it was a difficult time, because typically you will have a finance committee meeting where you could get direction from the board, so we were very conservative, and you will find that out as we go along with each line item. Connie?
Good evening, and congratulations to our new board members. Again, my name is Connie Worley. and I'm presenting the proposed budget. Starting at the top, we're looking at operating revenue is comprised of 3 divisions: fuel service, lease revenue, and operating agreements. The fuel service is broken down into 2 sections. Excuse me, the first is actual self-serve fuel. The second is fuel flowage fees. The self-service fuel budget is reduced from the prior year. Currently, I have 2 fuel tanks, one of which is inoperable. We have a grant, and when we get to the grant section, I'll show you. We have a grant for new construction for fuel tanks. That grant has been voted on, it has been, the contract has been signed. We anticipate that starting shortly. We do not know, however, how long it will take. We're assuming 9 to 10 months. We do not know what impact it may have on our current fuel operations. The grant that we have, the project is estimated to be about $562,000. The grant from FDOT is $450,000, and with $112,000 local funds. And again, the board resolution was signed in December of '23, and the grant was signed in January of 2024. The flowage fees are from Atlantic and consist of 16.5 cents times the quantity of gallons that they sell. Lease revenue. Lease revenue is comprised of commercial, which is fuel farm, terminal space, restaurant, and commercial hangars. Corporate, major leases, which would be Atlantic and Northrop Grumman. Other, which would be land lease and offices. And less than 2 years, which would be your T-hangers and your tie-downs and residential. We have 1 residential property. The T-hanger revenue includes a 3% CPI, an estimated income on 19 new T-hangers at $700 a month. In this budget, we estimated at 10 months worth of income. However, that project has been delayed. It could be, we had anticipated it to be them to begin in November or in December. It has been delayed again, so that income may be reduced. But again, the lease income for the tenants for the T-hangers does include the 3% CPI. There was a T-hanger appraisal done in September. This is required by the FAA. The prior T-hanger appraisal was in October of 2020. And this will need to be brought before the board for review. In that appraisal, there were suggestions for the appropriate T-hanger rents, and they are a little bit above what we have now. The budget does not include rent increases based on the appraisal or possible increases on ongoing maintenance needs. The third section is operating agreements. Operating agreement revenue includes operating agreements and use fees, which would be the conference room, rental car agreements, U.S. Customs, badges, and event support. Cost of sale, cost of goods sold. This includes the avgas, so self-serve fuel. The budget reflects possible interruption to construction of the new tanks. And that goes hand in hand with your fuel service revenue. Operating expenses. The first line item is the personnel and benefits. The salaries have been adjusted for an estimated 3% increase for current staff, but not for the interim executive director. Calculated average would not be, okay, if we look at the actual, if we're looking at the proposed budget, this budget was calculated based on June financials. If we took a true average of that, it would not have been accurate because the initial staffing at the time of the beginning of the fiscal year in October, November, December timeframe, there was minimal admin staff. So the actual payroll costs are skewed for 3 months. The with current staffing, the current gross payroll is around 35,000 per payroll. We're paid bi-weekly. And so that was used in guessing into the proposed budget. So that's why there's a difference between the projected and the proposed. The include in with the personnel and benefits includes the salaries, taxes, the FRS, which is the retirement, and includes the group insurance. There was additional staff added due to the turnover and for separation of duties. For instance, there was only one accountant in the past. For good audit practices, we should have separation of duties. So one person does not write the checks, sign the checks, deposit the checks. We need to have a good audit check. There's also audit checks for separation of duties for FDOT, FAA as well. Retirement contributions are estimated at an average of 18% of the salaries, but they do not reflect potential catch-up amounts for late enrollments. The new group insurance costs are $18,145 a month. Prior year was $16,172 a month. So that is an increase of $1,972 per month. So that is included in this budget as well. Payroll processing fees remain consistent year over year. Contract temp labor, that was a one-time issue, one-time expense in this current fiscal year and is not anticipated to be needed. Professional services. The amount of professional services include accounting, appraisal, court reporting, engineering, legal, HR, and other consulting. The accounting professional services includes $100,000 for annual audit and $40,000 for possible continuation of the forensic audit. Appraisal services are estimated at $30,000. In prior years, some appraisal services were coded to professional general instead of appraisal services. Court reporting services are estimated to be $1,800 a month, including appearance, after hours, and transcript fees. Engineering services budget includes estimates for possible work unrelated to specific capital projects. Legal services projected fiscal year costs were higher due to averaging using higher costs earlier in the year. Legal costs have lowered after that point. Estimate includes $15,000 per month for general counsel and aviation counsel each, plus an additional $40,000 for possible other overages. General professional budget includes estimate for other possible consulting services. And HR services budget includes around $3,500 a month, currently billed by Conceptual HR, plus possible overages for extra services as needed. Airline operations, obviously we do not have commercial services, but this is strictly the expense for badging. Gifts, meals, and entertainment is for occasional staff lunches. Prior budgets included this expense in office expenses. We chose to separate this out in its own line for transparency. Travel. Per diem budget has been increased in anticipation of additional training and conferences held off campus. Newer staff training will be needed to mitigate further consulting expenses. Technology budget includes communication equipment, computer equipment, security equipment, and phone internet services. Communication equipment budget of $9,000 includes monthly copier usage to include ink, printer ink. Computer equipment budget of $20,000 includes estimates of older equipment needing replacements. Phone and internet budget of around $30,000. It's drastic reduction from prior years due to our updating the phone system. The phone system we had was on its last leg. So we replaced that with the go-to phone system. And that helped us eliminate larger costs, for instance, with AT&T. Utility services budget includes water, electric, and waste disposal. Disposal costs have increased due to higher fuel and oil disposal costs. Also, FPL has increased their wattage rate 9.6% over prior year. So we increased that budget just a little bit. The leases budget is solely for equipment leases. That is solely for the rental of the Titan fuel truck that we use. Insurance, as you see, that one has drastically increased, and that is solely for our general liability, property, flood, and crime policies. Repairs and maintenance. Repairs and maintenance encompasses several areas: building, fuel farm, grounds, airfields, vehicles, office equipment, computer communications, and rental lease budget. The building repairs, currently we have that as around $165,000 for anticipated T-hanger repairs. Fuel farm budget of around $5,000 includes possible repairs to our current tank prior to the completion of the new tanks. Our grounds budget is around $40,000 and includes various landscaping updates. Airfield and nav aid budget of $70,000 includes $50,000 for monthly nav tech maintenance, plus an additional estimate for other repairs and maintenance. Vehicle and equipment budget of around $32,000 includes anticipated repairs on older vehicles until approval is received on purchase of new vehicles. Office equipment budget is minimal, as no office equipment purchases are needed. Computer communications budget is $0, as iConvergent, which is the company who was helping us with our old phone system, that service is no longer needed. And the rental lease budget is around $7,000, and that is for equipment perhaps needed in maintenance activities such as a lift or a crane. Outside communication budget is very similar to prior years and includes public relations and event sponsorships. Government fees and assessments is strictly from the customs billings. Other fees and assessments budget is drastically reduced from prior years, more than half, due to reduced purchase services fees. Earlier this year, we began charging a 3% fee for those tenants that paid via credit card to recoup some of our merchant services fees. After that, we had a great reduction in tenants paying via credit cards. And we also opened up the option of paying via ACH. So we have a lot more tenants paying via check, ACH, and we still have quite a few credit cards, but the merchant fees are greatly reduced for that purpose, or for that reason. Office expenses budget is also drastically reduced as a result of our new purchase order policy, implementation requiring management approval and purchasing performed by one individual. Operating expenses budget includes cleaning supplies, software support, fuel lubricants, tools and equipment, and uniforms. Cleaning supplies budget is also drastically reduced from $24,000 last year to $10,000 this year due to implementation of the PO policy. Software support includes iVenture billing estimate of around $8,000 a month, AeroSimple of $1,500 a month, QuickBooks for $275 a month, and Adobe for $300 a month. Fuel lubricants budget of around $16,000 is primarily for the autos in mechanical vehicles. The uniform budget is around 7.5 thousand, and it is increased slightly over the prior year for our name change, new logos, and hopes of better quality clothing. Publications and memberships budget increased slightly over the prior year to accommodate increase in membership costs. Professional development budget increased by 20,000 over the prior year, reflecting anticipated one-time training costs for newer employees and board members, which will reduce the reliance on consultants. Cost in this category should reduce in subsequent years and is anticipated for 1 year only. This brings the total operating expense of the budget of $4,356,593. Total operating income before depreciation is $818,563. The depreciation expense of estimated $5,200,000 is based on current year schedule provided by Cherry Beckert, who is our CPA firm. There are minimal additions to the capital assets for this fiscal year 24-25, and no capital projects completed and placed into service in this same year. This amount does not include the new T hangars that are expected to be completed December or January. Non-operating income is comprised of investment income, which includes the interest on the reserves that we have. And the reimbursed expenses is income from our tenants. Some tenants are billed utilities or internet services. That's where that income is from. Which leaves us a the total non-operating income is $212,660. For net profit or loss before the grant income is $4,168,777. Grant revenue for our federal grants is $669,253. For state revenue, it's anticipated $6,627,775 for a total of grant expected $4,297,028, leaving a change in net position of $128,251.
All right, thank you. Mr. Pittman, do you have anything you wanted to add to that, or?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Connie, can you take a second to talk about the supposed shortfall?
Supposed shortfall?
Yes.
Yes, there's not a shortfall. The variance between last year and this year is in relation to grant projects. I'm sorry, I'm trying to make this bigger so that we can all see it.
I have it here too, if you want me to slide it.
This is the prior year budget that was prepared for the airport authority. And in that budget, there were several grants included as anticipated income that never happened. The projects never happened. For instance, the fuel farm improvements, that was not slated to actually begin until this year. There is a $700,000 FAA grant for small community air service development program. We don't have commercial services, so that's irrelevant. The taxiway F extension is actually not slated to start until fiscal year 26-27. And the design and construction of the US 1 to the conference center, those two kind of go in hand. They may begin this fiscal year, but they will probably run into the following fiscal year. We did include the access road to US 1 conference center in our grant revenue. Here is a breakdown of the grant revenue. Let me make this bigger for you. As you see, the T hangar construction, which is our ongoing project, at the total grant total is $1,459,465. The grant balance remaining at 6/30 was $708,762. The additional current year expected, which are invoices that have occurred since this budget was initially created, is $99,359. So our new year expected grant from the FAA for the T hangars is $609,402. And up for that grant, there's $62,740 of local funds. For state grant revenue, you see the breakdown here. We have the T hanger grant. New year expected is $211,000. Local funds expected is $719,000. The Florida Job Growth Grant Fund, this $892,795, that is for design only, and it has to be completed by September 30th. That is included in this new year. The land acquisition grant, this was the grant that was utilized to purchase the Gun Club property, which is where the Hawkeye View Lane Road is. There are funds left in that grant that can still be utilized to purchase other properties that may assist with the Casacola US 1 to the Conference Center New Road. The fuel form improvements we've discussed. The access road US 1 to the Conference Center, we've included that grant of $925,000 with local funds of $231,000. And a new grant is a possibility that will be brought to your attention for discussion. A student maintenance training program grant for $250,000, and that is for a training for new students to work on airplanes.
Okay, so hold on, Connie.
Yes, sir.
So we were being conservative, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if we wanted to have the bottom line look huge, what else could we have added on there and done what was done before?
We could have added the taxiway F extension. That would increase our local funds, or it would increase our grant revenue as well. So instead of the $4,054,000 in grant funds in our projected budget, it could be $5,279,000.
So we would have shown that we had a profit of $2 million, correct?
Correct.
All right, so why didn't we put that in?
Because the local funds requirement would have depleted our operating funds.
So you're saying if you had claimed the grant income, then you would also have to account for the matching as an expenditure?
Correct. Some
Okay.
grants are 80/20, some grants are 90/10. It depends on the grant, depends on the type of building. But with almost every grant, there are matching funds required. The job growth grant does not.
Right, so Chair,
It's an exception.
Mr. Chairman, so what we did was being very conservative. We realized the mistakes that were made in the budget in the previous year. We could have fluffed it, right, by putting these grants into board member Paula's saying reliance on grants. We could have fluffed it to put that $2 million. If the board wants us to put, this is a budget we're presenting to you all. And if you want us to put the $2 million, because if you look at the previous year's budgets, last year's budget, you had a surplus of $2 million. If you look at the years prior to that, I think you had a negative $4 million and a negative $2 million. And that was before we sat here. So again, the fact that we weren't able to receive input from the board in the form of a finance committee meeting, so we erred on the side of caution. We wanted to give you a true number, not a number that made us look good because, hey, it's like we got a surplus of $2 million, but then when we respected y'all a little bit more than that, that if you would dig into it, you would find what we found when we looked at last year's budget. And so again, we present this to you all for criticism, for input, for changes, what have you, right? But this, in our opinion, is the start of the discussion to give you something to work with as we move toward having a good budget that we can live with, not something that we had in the previous year that we couldn't. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So with that, we'll open it up for board comments. Actually, yeah, we gotta open it up to public comment. It's gonna take me a while to get used to that until we change it. So we'll open up to public comment if anybody has comments on the proposed budget. All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a discussion. Why don't we start at the end and we'll work this way since we ended on you last time. Unless you don't want to start.
Well, I've been in aviation my whole adult life. I know it costs a lot to fund aviation, and just kind of break down some of this stuff for me, would you, Courtney? Like with the professional services again. I'm just kind of, I know that we've reduced it from last year, or increased it from last year, but we reduced it from the projected. So what was the difference between 24, 25, and now the projected and the proposed budget now?
When Connie and I was coming up with this one, we wanted to yield to you all. Alright, so this year was a unique year. We use that word around the airport authority from the staff perspective, because that's what this year was. When it came to legal fees, and public records requests, things of that nature, were something we didn't predict. And so with that balloon, if you will, that first and second quarter and going into the third quarter of costs that we weren't used to absorbing, we wanted to turn back and say, hey, we even put a cushion in that 700,000, but we don't know, it's hard for us to project. So we wanted to err on the side of caution and hope that it didn't happen again, because the balloon burst and we weren't able to have a discussion with the board and say, hey, we are above budget on these items. What would you all like us to do? And so again, we even put in our notes on our draft budget, talk to the board on with regards to how they wanted us to handle this segment with regards to legal services.
Can you touch on the personnel and
Absolutely.
benefits, please?
Absolutely. Okay, so we added 2 people. The reason why we added 2 people, this past year has opened us up to more scrutiny than this airport has probably ever dealt with in its history. With what we went on after, and we all are aware of the blocker letter, we were opened up to, I'm surprised they're not here today. The FDOT, we are currently going through an FDOT audit. They started back with the grant that we had with the access road to the terminal. And they looked at our SOPs, they looked at our organizational chart, and they said, hey, you don't have the people in place that you're supposed to have. The FAA came down and said you don't have the people that you're supposed to have in place. When we had our financial audit, forensic audit, they said you didn't have the people. Just like Connie alluded to earlier, you had the same person taking in pay, processing pay, and then taking it to the bank. Same person who took the timesheets, if you will, processed payroll and sent the payroll out. They left us vulnerable. And that's why that's why I think we had what we had with the theft that we had. But luckily that we did have things in place that we were to catch it at the point that we caught it. But are we to continue to repeat the same errors? No. And so what I did was, and then we also had huge turnover. So in the last 2 years, if you look at it right now, we just have 1 staff member in admin who just went over the 2-year mark. He just went over. The rest of us are less than 2 years. So there's been extreme turnover. And with extreme turnover comes the changes in salary, where you have a person come and a person go. And then we had to pay some people who left. We had to offset some costs on that rate. So, and then the increase in the insurance, the increase in insurance rates across the board. That was something I remember when I went to the City of St. Augustine Beach budget meeting, they had the same issue, right? And we're locked into that for another year. Next year, I'll be coming to you all, if me or whoever sits in this seat, will be coming to you all saying, hey, we need to look at new insurance rates. But unfortunately, those things came out in September. So it wasn't, even if we were to have that discussion to changing what the insurance rates would be, we wouldn't have much time. And so, long story short, we added 2 personnel overall for compliance. And we would have had the discussions that were required or what have you, but we did it for compliance, not for any other reason.
And I got just a couple more
Yeah,
questions
please,
there, Chairman.
please.
When we were talking about lease revenue,
Yes, sir.
I remember back in the day when I was a reserve deputy, still flying for the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, working out at this hangar still. When we had issues with the hangar, like the door, we took care of that ourselves. Is there any program that when, say, a T-hanger door doesn't work or something happens inside that hangar, that's our responsibility? And then is that in the lease?
That
when
is
they-
our
when they
responsibility.
lease?
So, I'm sorry to cut you off. There are certain things that are in the tenant's purview, right, where they are responsible for, that they take care of. But like the walls, the doors, the roof, things of that nature are the responsibility of the airport authority, and that is built into the leases.
Okay. Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Board Member
Thank-
Chapman?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just have a couple of quick questions. When you were talking about repairs and maintenance and how that includes the maintenance of the vehicles here on the property, did you put into account the purchase of a new to us truck? Because I know that our last meeting, we discussed how we're kind of on our last leg for some of those vehicles, correct?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And then not only that, if I may, we are looking into grants. They have grants now available, so we've been talking to other airports and other consultants. They have grants that are available that 95% or 100%, where there's no match, for electric vehicles. And so I think that will help our image of going green. So there are grants that we're looking at. So we're not just looking at spending our dollars.
Right.
We're looking at other avenues of getting these trucks.
And if we could talk again about benefits. So it was brought to my attention by some employees that their retirement wasn't starting at the appropriate time. So from my understanding, retirement begins the day they're hired.
Yes, ma'am.
And some of our employees were at the 30-day mark, the 60, all kind of all over the place. Does the budget account for making up for that?
If I may?
No. Please.
Okay, so we haven't come to a decision on how that's gonna be handled. I'll yield to, general counsel
Okay.
and explain. We're still working through that, if I'm correct. We're trying to figure out everything. And so is there a line item in the budget for it? The answer is no.
Because that's going to be a pretty significant number, if I understand correctly.
Maybe,
Okay.
maybe.
Do you want to provide any?
Through the chair to the commissioner, if you recall, Ackerman was retained on this matter to finish their investigation and their review of the FRS, Florida Retirement Plans implications. There is recommendations that we're still vetting through with Mr. Pittman as to what is the appropriate next step as to how best to conclude and come to a conclusion on that matter. But at this point, unless Mr. Pittman agrees otherwise, I'm not prepared to make a formal recommendation as we're still trying to gather the information.
Okay. I just want to make sure if there was accounted for in there or not. Okay. And as far as our fuel costs, are you looking into or have you looked into ways to change that price? Have we talked to other banks? What are we doing here? And I'm asking because I feel like our airport has traditionally kind of run more like a mom and pop shop instead of like a government entity. And I think, and you'll see in what I've written to, I think that we need to talk more about credit, finance, and building revenue. And I think part of that comes from the price we're paying for the fuel.
Absolutely.
Right, because if I understand correctly, there's two different places it could come from, and then the price varies here and there. But there's also programs out there, correct, that
That
would
is
lock
correct.
us in? Or has that been, can you talk on that a little
Absolutely.
bit?
All right, so to what Board Member Cashman is saying, right now we get our fuel from Titan. The fuel either comes from the Everglades or Tampa. And we typically don't know how much the price is gonna be till said fuel arrives. And then once the fuel arrives, you gotta buy what you got. And then we're pretty much chasing the rabbit like a greyhound to never catch it. Because once the fuel arrives, we get what the price is, and then we're trying to set the price that we wanna charge, right? To me, that doesn't make any sense. And that is not a good way to budget. If you look at the budget from the previous year, it was said that we would charge $5.50 We never did that. We got to $5.10 and people were losing their mind. And so, and rightfully so, if you would look at other airports, but we still got software that we need to maintain. We have a fuel tank that we need to maintain. So they have, to what you just asked, they do have programs. So we've been interviewing other banks in anticipation of eventually coming to you all to ask for the submission of RFP for us to move from the bank that we're currently at and to go for hedging. You can hedge fuel. All right, so what you do when you're hedging fuel, you're betting on the price. You're betting that the price doesn't go below what you hedged. Now, the beauty of it, depending on which bank you go to, is the time period of your hedge. You can do 1 month hedge, 2 month, 3 month, a year, 18 months, 2 years, however you see fit. You could say, hey, it's the summer and summertime fuel prices go up. Hey, I want to change what we're hedging. And so what you can do with that, now you're not chasing a rabbit anymore. You can set your prices, and then we can come up with a policy to where we truly set the price to where it's beneficial to not only the tenant, but the airport. If you look at our policy right now, the only guidance that I'm given is that I must maintain 25% profit on the fuel. That's very vague. But then if I'm looking at a budget that says I charge $5.50, I am chasing something that I will never catch. If I never charge $5.50, if the tenants aren't going, if I don't want the tenants to go elsewhere, and then I'm not incorporating from the effect of flight ops that is coming from the tower, all of these variables lead to reduction, and also losing a fuel tank. So all these impacts. So the mitigation tool, to come back around to the question you originally asked, a mitigation tool to solve this problem, one of which is hedging the fuel. So lock in that price and then budget around it so we can have true profits and benefit the tenants at the same time.
So this number that's in here doesn't obviously quite reflect that just yet, but you would think that should we be able to move forward with that, that we would see some savings on our end as well as your
Absolutely.
tenants. Okay.
Absolutely. Again, we were very conservative because we wanted to talk these other things out with you all before we have to before we move forward.
Well, we appreciate it. I mean, I for one would rather be pleasantly surprised later with a number than disappointed. So I appreciate that. I think that's it for me for right now. If you want to keep it.
Yeah, we can come back to
Yeah,
Round two.
I'm probably gonna need to come back for me. Overall, I should have brought this up in general comments, but one issue I very significantly have is I feel like we're being pressed past a budget. Because as I understand, we don't have past tonight, and again tomorrow morning, payroll doesn't get made tomorrow, which,
Wednesday morning.
I'm sorry, we're on, thank you, Wednesday morning. Thanks for the correction. And to me, that's 100% unacceptable. It was the first thing I brought up the morning after I was appointed was we need to pass a budget. This should have been an emergency a couple weeks ago, not an emergency now. So here we're in a position where we have to pass a budget or people's kids aren't getting fed. That's not a place to be in. So I don't know where that occurred, but I would say even if we pass a budget that we should reopen this at a later time to make corrections because I'm personally not going to be in a position where I don't pass a budget. I mean, frankly, that's what we're here for. We need to pass a budget. We're not Congress. So it's going to happen from my standpoint, but it's unacceptable that we should be forced into a budget, especially one that has a 40% raise in payroll. I understand a 3% raise. A 3% raise is not a 40% raise. Went back to past years, 710,000, 1332, 1461. Sorry, this is in thousands. So 710,000, 1.3 million, 1.5 million, 1.3 million, 1.4 million, and now 2.0 million. It's a pretty drastic shock. I would consider maybe the additional 2 staff if whether we could have had additional duties for existing staff. So, I mean, I guess in all, I'm gonna probably be supportive just to move forward, but I don't like to be last minute when something should have been emergency 2 weeks ago. That's my overarching. I do have a more nuanced question. So, well, let me first clarify. Am I accurate to say
that we need to pass a budget tonight to make payroll on Wednesday.
From what I understand, they can make an emergency, like, so if they're traditionally paid on Wednesday, right, we're not even meeting till Wednesday, they can put in, like, we're putting this in, they need to be paid Thursday, so we can do like a 24-hour. I know that's still not enough time, but, payroll itself they can actually do that.
For general counsel, if you have any feedback on the timing of all of this and the urgency of it.
So your budget, you're required to have 2 budget meetings. This is the first tentative budget approval. Your second budget approval would be on Wednesday. We have given some high-level guidance around how to make that work from a payroll perspective, but it would be our position that absent an approved budget, payroll should not be issued because you would be outside the confines of your charter.
So that's good clarification for me, which reinforces the position I take. And I think we need to get to the bottom so that is clear in advance next time where we're not last minute. The more specific question that I would have on the T hangers, one of them was, I'm to understand those 19 will be done not in October but in January. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
So you have some that come on, so some that come online in November, and then the last are slated December 1st to be ready. Is
Okay.
at our last meeting, we had a T-Hanger meeting this past Friday.
Okay. So sorry, I thought I heard 19 would be delayed.
Yeah, so what she's referring, so what she's referring to is a field with a tenant, lease signed, the whole nine, so that's what she's projecting. Because on average, when you go down to, say, for example, we use the model of going down the T-Hanger waiting list, which I, in my opinion, think we should. That person has 3 days to respond to that input, so that's one person, right? So it's not like you running through 19 people, you're going one at a time, and they get 3 days to respond. And then she was given a buffer, you just misspoke, she was given a buffer to account for all 19.
Okay, on that notion, do our construction contracts include liquidated damages and consequential damages for the lost revenue that we're encountering?
That's right. Do you want to speak to that?
He's
He's
a thumbs
thumbs
up.
up.
Okay, so then our budget should, I would think, account for that revenue. So that shouldn't be 10 out of 12 months. We should get that revenue that we are rightfully due. Next, just as a passing comment, the notion of being conservative by not including grant funds. Yes, I do not want to be overly reliant on grant funds. However, my bigger concern is that our operating expense is at 3.4 million budgeted for 24-25 and 4.4 million for 25-26, $1 million increase. So I guess my reliance on grants in my mind would come from not just increasing revenue, but minimizing expenses, and I don't know that the current budget does that.
May I speak to that? All right, so I get where you're coming from the reliance on grants. That is, if you look around Florida, that's what airports do. Unless you're like Naples, you have a $60 million budget because you control the FBO, you control all the hangars, you control all the fuel cells, and you control the commercial entity. Then you have a surplus. But at airports our size, there is a reliance on grants, and the reason why is that you don't want to tap into your money. So if we were to say, for example, want to build a hangar right now, and we didn't want to use grant funds, we would have to use the money that's in our bank, right? But what I say, but I see where you're coming from, and I say we should maximize our resources that we have while using grants to get us toward our goal. Is the goal to be self-sustaining? Of course, we would love to, but that is a long-term goal. But we have a lot of infrastructure, a lot of things that we need to build in the process to get to that point. We don't have a fuel farm that we have sold rights to that we're getting fuel from. Like Connie said earlier, we get 16.5% of Atlantic. We have the self-serve, one tank, but that's not going to move the needle. We haven't fully utilized the resource of the T-hangers and properly charged for them. That's what we're going to discuss at another meeting, but we didn't want to incorporate that. If we just went off the appraisals alone, that's almost an additional 300 grand added, right, if we were to do that. And not speaking about anything else. And talking about what we would be discussing with you all at a later date as well, is attributing a 5% to that for the maintenance, so that would handle what you were talking about, the operating costs. And so we have some ideas, and that's just a few for the sake of time. We have some ideas to mitigate these things, but again, we have to get into these conversations and move forward with that. I like the focus. This is new to say, hey, let's get away from reliance on grants. I see a future in that, but it's gonna take some time and a strategic vision on what are we working on? Are we working on the east side, south side, whatever, right? But not all grants are a negative thing.
I do want to clarify, I'm not against grants. I'm against over-reliance, and again, in my explicit discussion now, cutting the expenses so that we're not reliant on the grants.
I get what
The
you're
grants should be icing on the cake, not the base. One more on the payroll, and I'll cede. The 2.0 budgeted does not include the director of operations role. So that will be an additional request later. So that, I guess, would reinforce the fact that we probably need to reopen this at a later time.
May I add to that, for transparency for all? When that budget was done, it didn't even incorporate my pay. All right, so it didn't incorporate my pay. The pay
This
that I
current
was-
budget does not.
No, the one that, the previous year.
Oh, the pre,
Yep,
I'm referring to the current year. So the 2.0 does not, it includes your pay, but it
Correct.
does not include the director pay.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I think, just to clarify and echo some of what you were saying, grants, I take those with a little bit of grain of salt. Long-term, they are great. They help, like, you know, we built the T-hangers with some grant money, and long-term, that'll be a rental revenue for us, and it offset the cost of building those, but it still cost us money today. So in the short term, every grant dollar that comes in, it has that 10-20% outlay associated with it. And so I think in the situation we are in, looking at our reserves and looking at our operating costs, you know, looking and saying, oh, great, all these grants. Okay, yeah, we just talked about spending $1 million for a grant project. It makes sense, but it's not, I don't think of it as income. I think of it as an obligation that, you know, is an outlay with long-term benefits. So I also look closely at what are the free-flowing dollars that we have, and that's all user-based. It's our fuel and our rental income, and, you know, people who rent this room for a meeting. I mean, that's the income of the airport on the day-to-day basis, and I'm not supportive of a huge increase in our day-to-day operating expenses, when we see that last year the free-flowing cash didn't meet the projections. So why are we looking at these big increases? I did have a couple of specific questions for staff. The where is the professional fees line item? You mentioned that budget came up with, like, saying 30,000 a month for the next, between outside counsel and general counsel for the legal fees.
Oh, so, yes.
That budget was kind of like, those were the numbers, and that's what's in this budget.
Yes.
That's kind of that portion of it. So for clarification, that would not include any of the $162,000 that the board is being asked to consider to pay Ackerman their pending fees.
That's again why we said, that's when we put the $700,000 number on there. That's why we said, when board member Dedge asked us, we wanted to yield to you all on that one, because of the significance of all these things, right? Of all the legal fees. That's why I said we wanted, in that particular item.
Okay, this is kind of a dollars and cents question. If we wanna pay Ackerman what we owe them,
Mhm.
and then have $30,000 left in the budget on a day-to-day for next year legal fees, we won't make it. Cause you didn't, it sounds like the budget is not built to reflect paying Ackerman.
That is included in the current year budget, well, prior year, 24-25 budget. Those invoices were expensed already in the budget.
I'm a little confused how we can do that. The board didn't approve that payment last year. Wouldn't it have to come into this year's?
I think if it's accrued,
It-
for accounting purposes, you
Yes,
have to
sir.
accrue it in the prior year. So that's why you wouldn't have to show it in a current year.
So that $162,000 is showing up, but it's showing up in the going over the budget figure? The 162, where is it? Just let me know where it is on this spreadsheet. Where is that included?
Thank you. That 162,000, as well as other expenses, are included. They were incurred in the fiscal year 24-25,
Okay,
and so that's where they reside.
so they are accounted for in these numbers?
They are accounted for, they are not accounted for in the proposed budget because they occurred in
What-
the prior.
Let me, so I think what Board Member Leota is asking is, in the budget on the projected FY 24-25, it shows 1.162 million. Is that including all of the bills that we're being asked to pay, or would it be, is the 1.162, is that the number that was already paid, and then we're gonna have to add another 162 plus on top of that? I think that's what she's asking.
Yeah.
Projected.
Okay, the prior year budget did not account for the extensive.
No,
overruns.
But the projected,
you, under the projected line, so you have one, so,
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
okay.
So the answer is
Okay.
yes. I got you.
Okay, that's
So
helpful.
no, you're good, you're good. The answer is yes. So that's why that
Yeah.
enormous total that you have for the previous year, how it ended, accounts for that, because those invoices came during that time period. And so those were, for accounting,
Okay,
were caught up during that time period.
that's helpful, and
I'm
that's
sorry,
good to
I
know that,
You're good, you're good, you're good.
thank you, that's helpful, and it's good to know that we're not gonna have to go back and amend this budget to
No.
then go pay a bill that's, okay, that's, thank you. I have a similar question then, and that would be, again, on the agenda was a proposal for a $250,000 plus for restriping. So that would be under, has that amount been accounted for in this proposed budget, and can you point out where? The repairs and maintenance, I would imagine that's where that goes,
No, actually, it would be a capital project. And it would not be grant related.
right?
Um,
So where is it accounted for?
there are non-grant
If you look at the screen.
capital,
Make it a little bigger.
yes.
it's better.
Is it?
A little better.
Okay.
Again, apologize that this other screen is not working.
So there are several current year, fiscal year, needs that will, we're hoping to include. It will not be included in the repairs and maintenance because they're of such an amount that they will be capitalized. And the runway markings is around 270,000, so it's included in these non-grant related repairs and maintenance type items.
Okay, I'm clearly not a financial expert, so are you saying that there's a number of capital expenditures that you're gonna be looking for the board to approve, at least the ones that are over 30,000? And that's not reflected in the budget and would just come out of the airport's reserves when those things are approved?
It would come out of the operating funds.
Well, to clarify what you're saying, like, which line item they're on somewhere, but I don't know actually where they are either.
I mean, I just, again, I'm not a CPA, but I would seem to anticipate and expect that an expenditure like that would show up in our budget somewhere.
I think one of the things that I'm used to seeing that we, this is, I think what you're getting at too, is like a 5-year, like it'd be good to see a 5-year capital plan, and then what the capital plan is for the current or the upcoming fiscal year with what is PAYGO versus what is coming from, other pots. So I agree with you. And I guess that is a question then, is this because these are capital, where is the actual money coming from? Is it coming from that? I mean, if you look at the operating revenue, cost of goods sold minus the total operating cost, I mean, you do have a buffer there. So that's where essentially we're taking some of that and putting it into PAYGO for capital projects?
Yes.
Okay. I think it'd be helpful is if we kind of saw that as part of the budget documents to see, because that's like my first question too was, what money is getting put into a rainy day fund, what money is getting put to our capital project plan. So thank you for bringing that question
Yeah,
up.
I'm particularly concerned about expenditures like that because we've, in the last year or so, had a lot of expenditures that came out of reserves. And I've brought up in multiple meetings in the past, well over in the last year, that I'm also concerned about long-term facilities planning. We have some older buildings, they will at some point, need capital repairs, and I haven't seen a structured plan around that, and that's concerning because having bills just show up whenever that have to get approved because, well, now the roof's gone is not ideal.
Yeah, that depreciation expense is a real expense.
What? But please, no. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was ready to, if you wanted to comment on that,
Yes,
because
please.
I'm about to switch topics, so that's
Okay,
fine.
if I may. All right, so what we're working on right now, to what you just said about having a 5-year plan, we're actually developing that right now. And so we're doing an assessment of all the hangers. Just let's stay on the vein of T-hangers, right? Because we're doing it elsewhere, but I just want to use the T-hangers as an example. We're doing an assessment of the material condition of all our T-hangers, of all the doors, the KL&M doors, for example, since they're closer to the water, have a lot of rust. And they're almost at the point of exceeding their life cycle, especially due to where they're currently located. We're looking at the roofs, and then we're looking at quotes and building it out so that we can say, hey, what is the priority, what needs to be done? So it's not to what you just said, I'm coming to the board with some substantial cost, right? I'm saying, hey, there's another $270,000. Another thing, back to the runway, that is gonna be a benefit to the airport. We're finally, next year, getting into the runway program. We weren't in that program before. So predecessors didn't want to be a part of that program. We got into that program last year. So it took 2 years for us to be a part of it. What that program is that the state of Florida goes around, you get on a rotation, and they do the runways for you. So next year will be the first time that we get added into this program. And so that won't help us for this inspection and the status of what the runway is now. So that will be a cost that you all won't have to stomach any longer because we will be a part of that program when they do that for us.
And I just want to add on top of that, I think one of the things that I focused on, and this will be another discussion, is having that, 5-year capital plan. What are priorities? What are must repairs? And then figuring out in the budget, where do we have either that we can do our own PAYGO funds because we've got it. Do we have to apply for grants on it? But I'm 100% with you. We as the board need to see kind of not only what this year looks like of capital projects and where the money's coming from and be able to prioritize those, but also what the next 4 years out look like. Because I deal with this on a day-to-day. It's like something that sounds like you need to do it now, but you can actually wait another year and there's another priority and you only have so much money, and we need to be part of that discussion. So yeah. So I
Also
think
helps when grants come up that we got the list.
we have a list of priorities. Yes. Yep.
right, and available funds for matching if we've
Yep.
jumped the gun on capital,
Yep.
expenditures, we may miss a good grant because we can't do the 10 or 20% match.
So,
So timing is important.
Not to mention the unexpected things that pop up.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, lightning strikes can take out a
Absolutely.
lot of
Absolutely.
expensive equipment.
Agree.
So that there's definitely lightning in Florida. Right, I did have a couple of questions. This first column, it says actual year-to-date, June 2025. So am I right that that is the full expenditure for the fiscal year, or is there like a month missing? Is that number like the what we actually ended up spending against budget?
Yes, the second column, the actual June of 2025. That is the actual financials for June. And that was what was used to create the projection. The projection is a calculation, if you will, of the actual.
So that's the difference between the actual and the projected is that like that last month. So the projected is really what we really did
Projected is
spend.
what we really spent up until that point in this fiscal year. We took a calculation, divided that by 9 months, multiplied it by 12 months, and that's where we got our projected.
We're missing a quarter of actuals, I think is
Yeah.
the question. And I mean, I understand we're only 13 days into the new fiscal year, so there's probably some outstandings from the last quarter of the fiscal year. What I'd like to, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, I was just asking General Counsel, one of the things I think we can do, because we don't have Q4 of the budget 24-25 to know what the actual FY 24-25 budget is we can, well, any changes we make today, we can do this, then we can have our meeting Wednesday. Once all of the accounting comes in for Q4 of FY 24-25 and we know what the actual was, we can go back and always address anything else that we need to. So, because I had the same question as you. We're sitting here. Why don't we have full actuals? But it's probably going to take another couple of days before all of that accounting is finalized, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
at least, yes, sir. And just to bring to point the professional services, if you look at the actual year-to-date of 584,000, a lot of that was front-loaded, if you will, because a lot of the big legal expenses occurred in June and prior. So that skewed your projection. If you take that, divide it by 9 months, and then multiply it by 12, you get the $1.1 million. But we don't anticipate having those exceptions any longer. So instead of using the projection, we calculated what the actual expenses are anticipated to be.
Yeah. And I just want to put some perspective on this for folks. Where I work at the port, our board approves our budget in the late spring of 2020. So they would have passed the budget spring or maybe early summer, and so they only had 6 months of actuals. And so there is, just by the nature of what we are, there's going to be a lot of projecting out, and we won't know until we'll know at the next board meeting what the actuals were, and then we can always reevaluate from there.
Not that, just a point of clarity, sorry, the actual column, I understand that was actual as of June 25, because it's not reasonable to have the next quarter yet. And the projected is just a proration. But I noticed some things, like you just mentioned professional services at 584, and you said divided by 9, multiplied by 12 to get the projected. But it looks like probably as of June, that actually is as of June, so it was probably divided by 6, multiplied by 12 to get your 1.2 million. And so it looks like some of these things, like fuel service revenue, was divided by 9, multiplied by 12, whereas other things were 6, multiplied by 12. It seems like there's a different proration on certain line items.
Or it could be, I'm
Different
guessing here,
expectation.
well, there are some things that are known, like Ackerman's the Averman's invoices are there, just not paid, so
Okay.
maybe that, it's not really a proration, not, they just added that in.
But the projected is a fair assumption moving for right now.
Okay, I do have, some questions on professional development. So last year, fiscal year we're just rolling off of, the total budget was $8,200 a year, and I think that was fairly consistent with some historical, years past. But the actual is somewhere expected to be in the neighborhood of 35,000 rounded up. Can you explain where those funds were spent last fiscal year, like on what exact trainings?
Want an itemized list?
Yes, please.
I don't have the itemized list.
Was it, well, let me just cut to the chase. In prior board meetings, I understood you to say that those funds went to pay for your trainings specifically, and
Well, no,
majority.
no.
So that's
Uh,
not the
so-
case.
So $500 a month, which was agreed upon by the board, was in there.
Well, I will just say for the record that I disagree that the board actually approved that. That's a matter of fact that we'll have to go back to the record to determine. But you're saying that 500 a month for your benefit was in there. Was there anything else in there, in the actual expenditures made that were not for your benefit?
Yes, we had other trainings for other individuals that were included in there as well, for myself and others.
Do you have any rough guesstimate of what was in the for others category?
No, I wasn't prepared to be asked that question, but I can provide that for you, no problem.
And so your anticipated funds that you're asking for going forward, is that based on the same assumption that you're getting $500 a month plus other trainings for your
No,
own benefit?
I finished my degree next month, and so I won't be done. I have my master's next month, and I've already sent a letter, an email to staff saying stop the $500 because I'm in my last class.
So where is the $29,000 being, I mean, there must have been some specific training, some specific personnel, that's just a really big jump.
Absolutely, absolutely. So like I said earlier, and I appreciate the question. So like I said earlier, most of the staff here has been here less than 2 years, right? And so there's a lot of people we want to get up to speed, right? Now, did we think that we would get that 29,000? No, but we were shooting for the stars. And the reason why, I want to be able to I'm thinking about the ROI. So we won't have to depend on consultants, we won't have to depend on outside. I think one of you mentioned it earlier, where you said, hey, one person can do more tasks. That's what we want. So for example, let me use Connie Worley, who sits beside me. If she learns about how to write grants, she's also my controller. So that's one less thing that we need to outsource. Then there's a level of education that I want to provide for those said employees so we don't have to ask questions. I got 2 of my personnel in the back that are operations supervisors. So if they know about 139 completely in and out and compliance, we won't have to rely on others to come in and assist us, which in turn, in the next fiscal year, I believe will save us that money. Because now we have the education and the ability to maintain most things in-house. And that's what I've seen most airports do that are moving forward successfully. You don't outsource everything. You maximize the people that you have, right? And then now you have the one-offs. And I think that ROI would be beneficial to us all.
Well, I'm not here to argue about the benefit of training. That's not a fight I'm trying to pick. My question was really if you had specific things in mind for this budget for specific people, because if not, we could instead, budget something lower.
Gotcha.
And then if specific trainings that make sense are identified, staff could always come to the board to amend the budget and, account for those things as they come. Because it doesn't sound like there's a structured plan behind this number, and that's what I was asking about.
It is. There is a structured plan behind that number. And it's due to most of the trainings taking place in November and December. So there's 2 financial trainings taking place in December, a grant, I'm sorry, November, December, there's a grant training taking place in December, but we can give you that list. And there's also some other trainings. We just finished up the wildlife training, and so we got other things that are encompassed in this, and we can provide you with a list to the board. That's no problem. Like I said, we were shooting for the moon to get everybody up to speed. So that way, because one of the things I told staff a couple of months back is we got to get to a point where we're not calling people to say how we run our home. We got to make the decisions. We got to provide the board with the best information, not relying on other people to guide us, because this is ours. So who best to know how this place should work or who should care but the people that come here every day? And so education to me, like I said, I'm about to finish my master's, is very important. And so utilizing the assets we have here, people, I want to invest in those people and educate them to how to better perform their jobs. And then I see, but long story long, I think I'm rehashing what I've already said, but I can provide you with that list, no problem.
Okay,
Can
yeah,
I piggyback off that?
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just real quick, the cost, just for clarity,
Yes, sir.
is that cost of training, like, hey, this course costs $1,000 to take, or is the time of personnel included in that training?
No. So it is the training itself. All right, so.
So the personnel cost, where they would essentially be on overhead or training, would be separate and additional to
Yeah,
this?
so that's still be, I mean, they're on the clock still.
Okay.
And I will be honest with you, a lot of these trainings are more than $1,000. All right, now they got some, you know what I'm saying, that are smaller, but the big ones that encompass a few days are more.
All right, well, I think that this ties in pretty tightly to the personnel and benefits line item, because, for example, if there's an idea of having an FTE who's doing grant writing, and then training for that on top of it, if we decide we don't want to approve that, that cuts both of those line items. You know, there's plenty of professional grant writers out there, and I'm just using that as an example. I haven't seen the breakdown of the payroll and what the ask, and with this 1.99 ask, what specifically is that? And what does that then roll into on these associated costs? I don't think we have enough information to make any kind of nuanced decision today. Which is why I would prefer to be more conservative and approve a budget that is more in line with last year's budget, and then on a case-by-case basis, even if it has to be monthly, you know, the budget can be amended for adding in additional spend, once we've had more than one meeting to look at something. That would be my proposal. And with that, I think I'm done.
Let me build off of that, just so that I think we all know what we're working with here. So in the personnel and benefits, the 1.42 budgeted for last fiscal year did that include the full contract amount for you?
No.
Okay, so we have to add, whether it's 306 or the other number that I heard, we have to add a minimum of 306 to what was budgeted. Otherwise, we don't have budget to pay an interim executive director while we figure out the next step. So that automatically puts us at 1.7.
I would caution the new board members about making assumptions on that, because I don't have a recollection, and I've looked at the minutes of the board ever approving that specific salary number. I do have a recollection of prior, when we had Mr. Top, and to my memory, but I haven't been able to locate a written transcript, where the approach was, we hire the interim at the same salary that the former executive director had. We just keep it same, while we do a search. And the former executive director, the last one to have that permanent job, was Ed Woolner, and he was getting paid, I think, less than $250,000 a year. So I don't think this board should be tied to the idea that interim or the next permanent executive director should be paid, anywhere near $300,000+ a year.
And that's a, yeah, fair conversation to have. I guess what I was looking at is when I went through everything, just taking, if we just take the 1.4 budgeted from last year and add some significant interim, you're in the 1.65, 1.7. Then the question I was gonna have after that was, cause you did send me, an org chart and you sent me salaries. So of who else on the salary was not included in last year's approved budget?
So you have, so salary wise, you have the executive assistant. Hourly wise, you have the operations assistant.
Okay. So that's kind of where, and I hear what you're saying. I guess where I was kind of coming from is I look at some of what our staff is, and I think we're understaffed in expertise. I think, as I look at this, who's our expert in procurement and making sure that we're, following procurement. Do we have, and I hear what you're saying on some people are dual trained on it. But I almost took a look at the org chart and said, I think we're missing some key expertise. And I'd almost rather be in a position where we've got a budget on salaries that is kind of just understanding the baseline with a little bit of wiggle room. And then to your point, as we discuss a staffing plan and everything else, we can always go back and amend. I just don't know if I see the harm in, and I'm trying to pull back the minutes or the agenda. I don't see the harm in necessarily keeping that just like baseline of what's being proposed, understanding that it didn't include certain things, or maybe we peel it back a little bit, but.
Clarification on that not being, it had somebody for executive director though, right? Or did it have no executive director?
It was at a very, so if you look at.
Is that
the
a
budget,
different
it was
rate?
very
But probably at
reduced
the 200 or 250 rate, so not a difference of
rate. It was like
300,000.
225.
Okay,
Like 225.
so add another 100, just so we've got wiggle room. You're now at 1.5. What other FTEs were not, or salary increases were not included in the 1.5 that was budgeted?
That's it, that's the two
Well,
I named.
Oh, actually,
Director
does
of
it go?
operations is-
I was gonna
Okay.
say, so there's a director of ops that would go above this 2.0 million. Were they in last year's budget though?
No.
Okay,
Yeah,
they- in neither,
Mhm.
so that's apples to apples.
So I mean, if you add an extra 100 to what was budgeted last year, plus, do we have a ballpark of what this position might run on the open market for an ops?
I do have a compensation, excuse me, I did do a compensation survey. I don't know off the top of my mind. I mean, it depends. It typically runs between, actually I do, it's between 90, depending on the airport, the percentiles, is 90,000, and I'm not even gonna go to the upper end of airports, but I'll say it's about 160, the way it goes.
Okay. So if we just, we could pick like 105 to be somewhere on the lower end, but not the lowest end, because we want to be competitive. So if you're at 1.5, you had another 105. You're at the 1,627, 1,630,000, somewhere in there. But that really doesn't leave for any augmentation to add what I truly believe we're missing staff. And I'm not saying that those are necessarily six-figure staff, but I think we're understaffed, and I would rather see the budget room so that once we go through the staffing plan, we don't have to then also amend the budget. We can just say, yeah, we know that we've got budget room to add that FTE, and there's no harm in building that buffer in there.
So long as that's an expectation,
Yeah, I mean,
that it's inclusive.
we can put we can put language on it, right? I mean, we're at a board meeting, we're the ones that really direct it, so we could say, you know, this additional budget room is for the hiring of an ops person and additional staff after we do our staffing plan. I just don't want, I think we'd be in a bad spot if that's the one item that we start trying to hit, when I think, like, the professional development, even though it's a smaller budget item, I cued in on that too, like, that one seems a little bit high. So I think we can build a little bit of extra buffer in other line items.
Mr. Chairman, to the chair,
Yes, please.
just to give some context to some of the questions about last year's staffing levels and this year's staffing levels. As some context, not only whether they're included or not, but I think also the duration of time. So significant data point is May of 2024. If you can believe this, the building was empty. There was no one there but the receptionist and a bookkeeper that worked at home. And it wasn't because after hours, these were working hours. Everyone else had elected to go somewhere else to work. The then executive director had resigned. Mr. Pittman indicated he wanted to go back to being a full-time, working in the tower. There was no one in the building at that month. And to your point of skill drain, it's profound, and it is one of our compliance items. So we are graded on our bench depth. We're graded on the duration of time that people have had trying to pass a 139 inspection and things like that. So all these people back here on the back row, you see a lot of youthful faces. They're all in their first job for their first time. And so I don't know, without getting into the weeds, of what that number last year came from, but it's been the last 18 months that Mr. Pittman has had the challenge of restaffing and restaffing in a way that can get us past an FAA inspection. Those are one of the graded items. So and to conclude, for example, some of those training items, this team literally followed FAA inspectors around at other airports in Florida to learn their jobs. And we've leaned in on a lot of organizations. Our trade association has helped us. American Association of Airport Executives, that Mr. Pittman's a member of, has helped us. Other colleagues at other airports have helped us as well. But I might start with the org chart and let that assessment that you just made of having some skills at Repson. We've never had a chance to exhale and do that in a contemplative way. So that might be a really good place that would have real benefit for the long-term plan, is org chart first and let that drive your decisions otherwise.
That's why I suggested maybe on that column, but I do, and I've got a couple other questions, and we'll go back. So I do agree on the T-hanger revenue that it might be beneficial to drop that revenue to be a little bit more conservative on what we would actually gain, because I think you're right. There's going to be potential delays. I may be not as hopeful on the incidental and consequential damages being recouped, because I don't know the contract may actually allow for a longer completion time than what we, if they say, oh, we're going to be done by this month, but the contract may actually allow them, an extra 90 days from there. So I wouldn't be so confident that we'll ever get damages if they're delayed. But what I would do is to be more conservative on the budget and maybe drop it down to 9 months or 8 months of revenue that might actually even be gained there. And then as they come online, and as you mentioned, you've got to notify somebody, give them 3 days, notify another. Like, let's just build that into the budget, that we're not going to generate revenue from the new T-hangers of not even 10 months, which you're saying right now you think maybe December. I would maybe say we're not even gonna gain full revenue, 8 months, 9 months, like, just be conservative on it, because then we might be pleasantly surprised, you know, if we can get some people in there earlier. On the flow rate that you had mentioned in the revenues, is there a CPI increase year over year on that, or is it just flat? We're stuck at,
It needs
Okay.
to be renegotiated.
okay, I was gonna say, or can we have a conversation with our partner on that? On the professional services, I think you're smart, so if I did the math right on the 700,000, that's 53,000 a month in all of those various people. If I've looked at the legal contracts, like, I think we'll be okay as long as we keep these meetings short and we don't get into any more lawsuits. So I think we've built a pretty good buffer in there on the professional services. I wouldn't be shocked to see that we actually come in under budget if we all are smart about it. Travel and per diem, I'd like to see that dropped. I think 10,000, given what happened last year through 3 quarters and even the projected and even budget. So I would either say go back to prior year budget of 6,000, or maybe you do a very small increase, but I'm gonna guess that the 10,000 was not based on what, like, board member Leota was talking about, which is, you know, write down all of the events that you go to, that you typically travel to. You provide a small uptick because, like, airfare might increase, or, you know, the federal mileage reimbursement. So again, this is just board member Primrose talking. I would love to see the travel be more in line with last year. Board member Chapman had mentioned on the vehicles. I'm fine with kind of what we have. What I would like to see moving forward is a fleet list of all vehicles that are owned by the airport, their ages, their mileage, and then if we've got some experts on staff that are, you know, gearheads who can come up and say, you know, projected maintenance versus this vehicle needs to be replaced in a year or two, that would help us as we're looking at the repair and maintenance of, you know, maybe we can push off a vehicle purchase a year or two, or, you know, there's tons of state contracts out there. Bozard Ford has a state contract through the FOP. But we as the board need to see what all of our fleet vehicles are, what their status is, and the recommendations. This is more for the community and the users of the airport on the fuel. I want there to be an open discussion. So as I heard Mr. Pittman say, maybe the fuel is, we're not getting the revenue that we could, but we also don't want to jack up fuel prices to where the users get upset. So my just commitment to the users of the airport is whatever we do on fuel, it will be an open conversation where there can be agreement. And I like the idea of the hedging, but you know, fuel prices are dropping, so it might not be smart for us to hedge right now. But whatever we do, it needs to be a discussion where you are all involved. Because if it includes increasing the price for fuel, we don't want that to be a shock, and we don't want you to leave because we've increased it too much. So that's just a conversation to the general.
And I would just comment that is an actual issue today, even at today's prices. I've heard of plenty of tenants who, when they're out flying, they stop off somewhere else to get fuel, even though this is their home airport.
Okay.
It's that sensitive of an issue.
Yeah, and that's just the conversation that we need to have openly with everybody before we do anything, but I'm open to all the feedback on how we can address that. So those are my comments related to the budget. I want to open it back up to any of the board members if they've had
I
additional
just want to
thoughts.
put a caveat on what Mr. Roberts said about the training and the folks back there in that room. And training, you know, I come from a military background. It's one of the most important things that we can do for our folks. And you know, putting a cap on the training, is, I get where we're coming from with that, but I wanna stay open a little bit on the training. But also, once we train them, I wanna keep them. That's one of the most important things that we can do, because, I mean, it's just like these big corporations. Yeah, they train people and then they walk out the door, and then they're back to square one. I don't wanna be back to square one. Once we train these folks and get them where they wanna be, I wanna make sure we keep these folks. And that's important, because, everybody wants to learn a new job, and they wanna be qualified. I mean, it's just like when you get your pilot's license. You know, you don't wanna stop at Joe Schmo Pilot. You wanna go to commercial. You wanna go to ATP. You wanna get as many ratings as you possibly can, not just private pilot. So, I'd like to see us keep that training budget a little bit higher than where we're at, to make sure that we get these people properly trained and keep these people.
And I
I
think,
wanted,
oh, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
well, I wanted to piggyback on that actually, because I know there's discussion about it being high. I mean, actually, I think it's probably 5 times worse than what we're looking at, because typically my training cost for my team, it's generally staff time, and I've tried to explain that's exponentially more than the cost of the training. But despite that, I would still say, even though I'm a little bit concerned about personal benefits, I wouldn't touch the training strictly because retention, if we've gone over turnover and brain drain, we've got folks committed to the airport, then I think that's a good way to keep folks. I would like to see the list though. And also I'd like to just throw this out as a recommendation. Florida has FCCM training that could be done. And also through FSU, there's a CPM program for Certified Public Manager. I think both of those might be good ones to consider, but I agree with the training. We do want to keep them though.
Yeah, I think to piggyback a little bit more on the retention, I see a little bit of tension in some ways. Yes, I agree that recruitment and retention of employees is very important, but we're also looking at bringing in a new, doing a search for a new executive director, and we would be putting a lot of the future planning of personnel with that person. So front-loading a lot of trainings and things that, you know, maybe the new executive director is gonna identify a different structure, like assortment of skills, and like wanna have some say in like who does what training, what person to bring in. And so I'm not arguing against training, but I think that you know, this next year is not, in my mind, you know, business as usual down the line with personnel.
If I may?
Yep, I'm sorry, please.
I hear what Board Member Mrs. Leota says, and that was the thinking as to why I was told not to hire a Director of Operations. But I would say this, these positions, what do we want to do? Right now, we are, as an airport, we have this cloud over us, right? I arrived on the scene for most of you board members, for you two, remaining board members, at the last interview of the last 2 executive directors, people that applied for the position. I sat here and I took notes. I looked at them, and I was like, I can destroy these guys coming out the tower, right? Why was I able to say that? You could say, well, I'm being arrogant. No, because what was going on at the time, we didn't appeal. We just didn't. And if we're honest with ourselves, we will admit that. And so one of the things that I can help you all do, whether it's me or not, is have something here for when that person arrives, they can say, hey, the controller knows what she's doing, right? The operations supervisors know what they're doing. And it's not a heavy lift, because please believe, I know what it's like trying to fill these positions. And what's the hardest thing to do? Hire somebody, right? And then you're hoping everything works out, right? And then with this cloud that's been over us, it's hard to keep people, and it's hard to keep morale high, right? Because one, they're worried about my future, their future, everybody's future, what all is going on. And so one of the things that we can do, that's why we put, going back to the training, because I'm military too. And training is something you can do to inspire and motivate a person because they feel like they're growing. But one of the things we haven't done in the last year is grow. We've been in a perpetual circle, right? And so I need to be able to give them something that they can say, hey, the last year of my life was worth it because I'm learning something and I'm gaining something. We've learned how to survive around here. But part of my job is to prepare this place for the next person, whether it's me or not. If it's me, I have an all-star roster. If it's not, they won't talk bad about me when I'm gone. So that's what we should be doing and focusing on. Thank you.
Courtney, it also builds morale. It makes,
100%.
it makes people happier, and when they're happier, they're gonna do a better job,
100%.
100%.
I think, and I'd ask council on this, I think one of the things we can do, that maybe, help kind of ease some of the concern that'll just be wasted, is, we could maybe put a cap on, so we can keep the professional development where it is, but require pre-approval by the board of any training program that's above a certain amount, so that at least we're getting feedback on knowing what the trainings are. So, you know, if it's a $750 training, you know, we probably aren't that concerned, but if they're, you know, sending somebody to get a $5,000 training that's a week long, we would get a, you know, notification ahead of time. That might be a way to ease concern.
I think that's, yeah, I think it's, I like that suggestion. On one hand, we don't wanna be trapped in amber waiting for the next, process on finally getting a permanent executive director. I mean, it's been well over 600 days. It's too long. We need to make a decision. But at the same time, you know, going pell-mell is a little bit of a concern. So I do like that suggestion.
So I've been advised, and just if I can recapture what we need to do, any particular thing that we want changed in this budget. So like I asked for the revenue on the T hangers to drop. All of these do we have to separately vote on all of these, or can we just do one big?
You can put them all together.
Okay.
Through the chair, you can put them all together and ask them to amend the budget.
Okay.
The staff to amend the budget. And then what will happen is the budget as amended will be brought for final approval on Wednesday's full budgetary meeting.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And then there'll be public comment, stuff like that as well.
Okay, so let's do this. Does anybody have any objection to my recommendation that we drop the revenue projection on the T hangers to, let's be like 8 months? Or,
I do.
you do, okay,
I think that if anything, we need to, I don't think the T hangers are self-sustaining right now, and I think we need to include like, hey, these are gonna come online, let's maximize them. I think at least the 19 need to be included. I would almost argue for the full year, but if they estimated 10 months, I'm fine keeping it as is, but I don't wanna drop it.
so yeah, let's ask that. So how many hangars are gonna come online? Like, so we're in October, we're in the fiscal year.
Yes.
When are the first batch gonna come online and how many?
All right, so the first batch is scheduled, they were end of October, they're coming online beginning of November now.
Okay, so, but we don't know who's gonna take them over.
Correct.
But you don't have to go one by one, right? You can go and offer them 19, and you don't know if those 19 will take. You may have to kind of.
Okay, so great question. I'm glad you asked this.
Okay.
So going off the T hanger waiting list, you gotta go down that list. Otherwise, we'll be back here with a whole bunch of upset T hanger waiting list individuals
But
who
the
are upset.
initial 19,
Yeah, but go down
Additional
the
19.
list.
we can do 19 at once.
So, okay,
Help me understand this.
Yeah, I'll hold my waitlist comment, but I do have a major concern about the waitlist.
Let-
We all have major concerns.
No, I mean, it's
Can
been
I,
changed.
let me time out.
Okay, so.
Can I ask council?
Yes.
So there's a difference, do we have to, we've got 19 available,
Yes.
do we have to offer the first one to the first person, then wait until we get the first one leased and then move to the second? Or can we,
That's
for
what
all
For a
19,
block.
can we send out to the first 19 people, say we've got 19,
It's as
What's
though, it's as though 19 people moved out overnight, and Ms. Van Santo's not here, but she would start calling and fill those 19 boxes, going right down the list. So the answer is yes, you can do them all at once.
Okay.
And you have to wait 3 days or whatever, and that list may change, but you can
That
make the offer
Yes.
upfront.
Yes,
Okay.
and people, the market's smart, it knows these are coming online, and people are kind of queued up.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we,
I do have something that may be a real financial impact here. It's my understanding that there was a T-hanger list of X at one time. I know folks who have copies of that. It has changed, and it has changed in ways that have taken people who are at one position and lowered them down. And there hasn't been, as far as I know, any transparency. There's been emails from staff members saying Dennis Clark was in there making changes to the T-hanger list. And so I don't know what's happened, but if there's a problem there with changing the T-hanger list improperly, and I'm saying if, because I don't know, and somebody challenges that they should have gotten a T-hanger when they didn't because they've got a whole copy of a list that says, hey, I should have been number 15. Why didn't I get a call? It may be prudent to make sure that we've got a good solid list. It's not going to be subject to complaints before making those 19 calls, and it might end up being a delay in getting those T-hangers filled.
We could be doing that now.
well, let me ask, Mr. Pittman, just is there any, what are your thoughts on
We're
that?
confusing a couple different things. So what Board Member Mrs. Leotta is talking about with Mr. Clark, he was working on the corporate commercial list. It wasn't the T-hanger list. That was a total separate list, because that's what he was doing back in 2023-ish. That was not the T-hanger list, right? Because one, nobody understood the difference between the corporate and commercial list, right? Nobody could accurately explain it. That's why if you notice in the Eastside Development Policy, we call it large, right? And so the T-hanger list, that wasn't the case. So Roxanne Buenasanto, if she was here, she would stand up and answer you, all right? She has gone back through all Cindy's emails, all as far as you can go back in the files to verify that list. And we do a T-hanger audit every year to verify that individuals still want that hanger. It is a long process of getting everybody to respond and say, hey, I still want a T-hanger. And a next mitigating tool is with the website that we'll have coming online here soon, that list is going public. Now, we're going to change how we do it as far as names, because I don't know about you, I don't want my name, phone number, email, and address all on the website. But the plan is, and I'll be working with council as we get closer to push for the website, is what we're thinking is assigning a 5-digit number to every person, so that each person can see how they're moving on the waiting list, full transparency. And then that 5-digit number will be attributed to a person on a different list, right? And so that way, you don't have to call us. You can go to the website, check it every couple weeks. We probably do it every 2 weeks, do an update, and you'll be able to see where you stand. But I say now the T-hanger waiting list is good to go.
Okay, so there haven't been changes to the T-hanger wait list in the last couple of years. Like people who are
With
at number
regards to-
2 years ago are still, if they've either moved up or I assume there have been some people that, nobody's gone down in the rankings is what I'm asking. There
I
haven't
mean,
been
if people have gone
changes.
down, if they don't, so for example, the 3 days that we call you, if you don't answer, you go down to the bottom of the
They
list.
go down to the bottom, so they would have been offered, that would have been the only time when they either took their name off voluntarily or they were offered something. I'm just asking, so just to be very clear, because that's,
If you know of something that I'm unaware of, please share it, but I'm unaware
so
of.
if we see a copy, so somebody comes forward and says, here's my public records request, copy of the T-hanger from a year and a half ago, and it doesn't match the T-hanger list that's today, that would be a surprise to you, is what you're saying.
Well, I would say it wouldn't match today. If you go a year and a half and hangers have come available,
Well,
there's gonna be
yes,
people that's
aside
gonna
from
be moved.
ordinary people filling hangers and either dropping off
and
because they
dropping
didn't
as well.
want it. But I mean, it's someone saying, I got an email from the airport telling me I'm number 20 on the wait list when I got a public records document that shows that I was 15 a year ago. What?
Mhm.
That would be
I would
an issue.
love to see that. I'm not aware of that happening. If that is happening, please share that with me, and then we can look into it. And a year and a half ago, that's right about my time. So I would love to see whatever information you have to provide, and we can look into
Okay,
it and research it.
Can you email me a copy of the T-hanger waitlist, please?
To the chair, Mayor.
Yeah, hold on a second. I think in the best interest of the airport, if there are discrepancies, it needs to be open. And so it might be beneficial to, send it to everybody on the board. It's public record anyways, anybody can ask for it.
That is a public record.
And then Board Member Leota, if you have somebody that you believe is not matched up, and if you've talked to somebody, then I think also bring that to not only Mr. Pittman, but I would think council to say there's a huge discrepancy because, yeah, the last thing we want is to offer one and somebody come and sue because their names have been changed. So that'd be my directive, is send the list to everybody. Board Member Leota, if you know of a discrepancy, please, so that, don't send it to the board because that would violate sunshine.
Got you.
Send it to Mr. Pittman and the board attorneys so that it can be addressed on how to best approach.
Right, and just to clarify, I did say this is an if situation, because I don't have a copy of the wait list currently, and only hearsay of people saying they've been contacted by by the staff and told that their number doesn't match up with records that they had in their possession from previously.
Let's get it out there and see. I think then going back to the conversation, we've got the ability to offer 19 at the same time to 19 individuals, do the 3-day wait period, and then move on. So we're gonna, I think, lean on staff a little bit. What is your best estimate of if you offer 19 hangers up when we know that they're gonna be available, how quickly do you think all 19 will be generating revenue? Immediately.
That's what I like to hear.
You got
Okay.
270 people plus
We should no problem.
on the wait list.
I imagine the people that have been waiting want to get in there.
Okay.
Is there-
2018.
So if we budget for 19 at 11 months of generating revenue, you might want to put 10 months because there's going to be some lag time with paperwork. So 19 at 10 months?
We did 10 months. That's what we did. We did 10 months. So
Okay, and then the rest are at how many months?
I had 10 of them at 11 months and 9 of them at 10 months.
So we'll do straight
I would do
across
all
So go
19
straight.
at 10.
across 10.
Okay.
Straight across 10.
Have you
And-
already started contacting people yet?
They call us. Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean.
So if we have an interest list
You're
already,
already-
then
It's already moving.
Yes. It's just waiting
So-
on them to be available.
Just a couple of detail questions. These new hangars, are they a premium on the rent?
So we finished. Yes. Long story short, yes, they're going to be a premium on the rent. We got
Is-
appraisal finishing up right now.
Is there any indication of interest from current tenants who might be willing to pay more to move into the new hangar? Is that something that is being looked at as a way of saying, hey, people who are here first, if they wanna move and then the new people backfill? Or are you just going straight to the new wait list for the brand new hangars?
All right, so we weighed that out for months, right, during the dead period. And saying that there was ideas to go with the oldest tenant, on the oldest standing tenant, then it was, hey, go down the 140 hangars and say which one of you wanna move into that. But at the same time, the people on the waiting list don't move, right? So while I'm going through 140 hangars and saying, hey, which one of you wanna move into it? And then getting them adjusted to the new price, right? Because the price is all over the place. The best way to do it, the most transparent way to do it, was to go down the waiting list, right? Because I've heard, hey, you should put all the helicopters on one, right? Now I'm gonna upset somebody else who wants a hopper space. And just to keep it standard, because I'm upset somebody regardless, is just go down the waiting list.
Follow-up question.
This one.
Do you allow people to swap hangars if they've got, someone comes in, they got the new one, but they would really rather get the lower rate with an old one, and tenants just talking like, hey, we'll swap?
Yes, we have a swap list. We have a swap list. Right, so the airport has a swap list. Right? Because, for example, you have tenants that want to get closer to the water, right? They want to be in. Right? Those people don't move. And so they might put on there, hey, whenever that comes available, I would love to swap to that hangar, just so they can see the water and see the sailboats go down. So we do have a swap list, but those swap lists are typically specific to where they're saying, hey, where they would like to go.
Just for the sake of time, just so we can get back to the budget part and not so much on the wait list, I have a suggested workshop, and what I've given to you guys that we can talk about later, that has the wait list on there, so if we could perhaps just.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was trying, so
Thanks.
so we've got all 19 that are coming online for 10 months of revenue.
Perfect.
And that will be reflected in the budget that we see on Wednesday. Does anybody have a disagreement with that? No? Okay. Does anybody have, and I'm just going off of what I wanted to change and then we'll go, does anybody have a disagreement in changing the travel and per diem to, let's just go back to last year's budget of 6,000 instead of the 10?
I don't know how you do that with the training budget remaining. If you keep the training budget higher, then I would assume that the travel would.
Well, if you look at projected for this fiscal year, the travel was 2,100 and the professional development was 34.
Okay.
So you're actually,
Way higher.
yeah, I think the travel is probably just budgeted high, but the actual is not. Like if you take the projected
Yeah.
for both of them, so does anybody have any objections to lowering travel and per diem down to 6,000?
No.
Okay. So, Mr. Pittman, do you have that also?
Yes, I have you, travel and per diem down around 6,000.
Put- Yeah, put it back to last year's budget amount of 6,000. Those are the only two that I had, so let's do this. Board Member Leota, any or requests on the budget change that we can all, discuss quickly?
No.
Okay.
I do think we need to talk more about personnel later, but for the time being, no.
Okay.
None for me.
No, sir.
Okay, so we have those two changes, and I think we're all good. So now we would need a motion to move the budget as amended for approval, for tentative approval, on Wednesday, October 15th.
Sorry, I do have two little questions
Yeah, please.
left. Just the job growth grant fund mentioned completed September 30th, 2026. Is that, the road's supposed to be
No,
just started?
No, great
So
question.
there was two things that we talked about in the budget, and I just need
No,
clarification.
no problem, because job growth grant fund can be very confusing. I had to sit down and chew on it for a
I just
while.
need to know what completed,
So-
yeah,
The design phase is done September of next year.
okay,
The construction phase kicks off October of next year. So right now, we're in the design phase of the job growth grant fund.
and that's gonna be achievable.
Yes,
Okay. Next question was, okay, sorry on the fuel. I'm fine with keeping it as is, but I do think, should the revenue side be increased eventually as well? We have, budgeted 1.5 million, projected 1.2 million. That 1.2 is with one tank inoperable, but we're gonna have another tank come online. And we have less proposed than we do projected. I just feel like maybe we're being a little bit overly conservative on that.
no, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because due to the price and the amount of the grant, we're probably gonna end up with one tank. So one bigger tank, but not two tanks, because we only got, what, 500,000, if I remember correctly? So 500,000, that's not gonna get it, 450, thank you.
So we're
It's
not gonna have
get-
two separate fueling?
So we're gonna have one brand-new big tank, right? Which will take care of what we need. And then there's an additional grant that is on the way, but that's for another conversation, another day, that will get us another tank down the road. But this will take care of all the problems, because maintenance staff has been holding that thing together by winning the prayer.
And if I heard you correctly, it won't even be fully online until when?
We're saying 8 to 9 months, worst case scenario.
Yeah, so I think that's the other challenge is we can't really project this fiscal year of having increased fuel sales because we won't even have a full, yeah.
But
Okay.
you'll still have fuel while you're doing that. And what's the capacity on the newer tank?
The newer tank, that's what we're working on now, to get the price. because with tariffs and everything going on, prices are going up. So that's why we're trying to move on this.
And your deliveries are usually, what, 8,000 gallons?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So,
So I've got additional questions on that later, but I was making sure, I mean, I feel like we're being a little bit overly conservative, but, I'm fine with motion.
The good thing is on the revenue, like being overly conservative is a win,
Yeah.
right? Because then we get surprised as we move through the year.
That's
So,
a happy surprise.
okay, well, seeing that there were no other changes, that I do, like I said, I need a motion to move the agenda, or move the budget as amended for tentative approval on our second budget hearing on Wednesday, October 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion properly seconded. Any discussion or debate? All good? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Do we have anything else on the budget hearing that we have to accomplish?
I'm checking, but I don't think so. I think you can close or adjourn in 1 second.
Chad, you're smiling.
No, I just, well done.
No, that is it.
Okay, so we can adjourn this budget hearing. Let's
and
give
go-
ourselves.
And go to the little boys' room.
Let's give ourselves, do we want to do, is 10 minutes sufficient? So let's come back at 7:27 to get started no later than 7:30.
My days are really long board meetings.
Door to the left.
Okay, try to beat everybody there.
Oh, man. Unfortunately, I did.
That's the worst part.
That's great.
We're just trying to keep you in order. I mean, so what he's just doing, just see, is there like a, from council, he said this isn't us, this would be you. Is there like a, sort of, model, a model policy or something?
I've got a new police agreement.
Yeah.
Close everything.
I'll be quick.
As soon as that,
Yeah, it's gotta be done 2 days before.
get back to the
So what you gotta do is make those changes.
I mean, it's not like we're there, right? The board just needs to review and adopt it.
yes, I mean, as long as.
Right.
It probably needs to be well publicized ahead of time.
Yeah. I would say just like a public comment, just a day.
There are two, yeah, there are two loopholes that people have been using. One is, owning it as an LLC.
One down,
One down.
one meeting down. We still got the other one to
Yeah,
go.
we survived. We doing good. We doing good.
Yes, and then
Can't wait to see how the chair handles the other 8 items on the agenda.
lease an aircraft.
It's just postpone them all till another.
You have every right. The workshop idea is actually a clever idea.
Yeah, no, I like it.
And it's, because a lot of these could get bumped to the workshops.
I mean, honestly, at the port, we'll schedule it at 9 a.m. and we'll bring in lunch.
How you doing, Chuck?
and-
What's
That's
like,
what sometimes you have to do in
Yeah.
those meetings. I mean, it sucks, but.
Funny, because you guys haven't been here through like a legit 5 people here discussing actual work.
No, look, there's stuff that we've been waiting for these meetings to happen.
Yeah.
There is a lot of work, which is why I kind of chuckled at the budget. Like, we're probably running on 16, 17,000 right now.
Yeah.
But depending on what you guys want to do,
Yeah.
there is a lot of work. What's that? I don't know. I don't know. You can see my point when we talked the other day.
Yeah.
Just whatever. As long as we know what we're dealing with. He should be here for us. For
Yeah.
sure.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Nick, I'm Reed Deputy.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm your AOPA volunteer for the airport.
Oh, okay.
I have a question for you all. As you guys are opening up this next session,
Yeah.
I have a question for just what we just went through on the budget side. When would
I
be
expect that door in the bathroom to get fixed.
Oh, we're working on
Is
it.
it related to like the actual budget?
Fix that door.
No, we gotta get
the
the whole.
discussion that was
So it's
happening,
locked on
that
somebody out
since
there?
I'm not a member,
Look like it.
Oh, you guys.
Lost their
That's
mind.
that's
On which particular
either-
I would have, if I was trapped in
on
there, I
cable.
bet, best
the
believe I would have
discussion
right
of,
up
hey,
this.
I don't
this new
understand
guy's
why
gonna
you put a
cost us
lock on
90
that
to 105,000 bucks.
Yeah.
Typically, the way people think
That
about it
computer's
is,
running.
that's the person's cost, it's not the total cost.
Right.
And since
Really?
not
I
everyone
can
is
see, I can see the door,
familiar
these
with
doors
that, they're gonna sit there and say, as you guys were saying, on any line item, is this the total cost in this line item? Or are there other costs associated with it?
It's cold.
We can,
It's always,
as you
always.
may know,
It's nice because it keeps
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I'm not complaining. 'Cause
I know, I always think it's part of my, I will bundle up so the running suits can be comfortable.
That's one thing I want to point out. Everyone, because to my knowledge, there aren't financial experts on the board. They don't have the technical experience that you seem to have.
Yeah.
As it relates to budgets. So I
You'll
just
see me
say,
shiver.
hey, caution to the wind. You guys are approaching a tsunami.
I have no
Yeah.
iron on a good day.
Well, I
so-
think we probably would have had that when we were in the budget. So we're meeting again Wednesday morning for the final approval. If you wanted to come to that meeting and address
We only
it.
got through to what, the executive director?
Okay. Well, yeah, if you want to bring it back up, Wednesday is just like a, hey, food for thought.
My husband,
for
I
everybody
will
else
tell
to
you
know
what my
that
husband
there
just
are
texted me about his thoughts
associated
about what's
costs
going in here.
on Yeah, because we just won't have another discussion at
I
this.
mean,
So we're going back into, because now we're getting on like
In the past, there's been a general comment, like, hey, we want to talk about the weather, grandma's potluck.
Their
Yeah.
policy right
Yeah.
now is law, right? Their public comment is
So
on
every
every
Wednesday.
single thing, and I'm very much accustomed to being at the beginning, there's public comments, things you wanna talk about,
So
and things
would
like
it be
that. So I would say,
appropriate if I were
if you
to
want
make
to
a
put it in
motion
writing,
that
it
we
can
just
be
go
read into the
through,
meeting minutes at the
board
next meeting
comment?
if you prefer to do that.
Would that, does that sound appropriate though?
Technically
You know I
speaking,
always
it's
worry
public
about
comment,
someone not in
and
public.
then can get to it. But at the board's discretion, we can move that if you'd like.
Well,
Yeah,
if
well,
you
you
reach
said
out
you have to,
to-
you said you come anyways to the, all the meetings.
It's an
So if you're gonna be here
hour.
Wednesday, just I would bring it back up there to say, hey, as a
I don't do well
reminder,
speaking in public.
I know you're gonna pass this budget. This is
Writing
what
I can
we
do,
got.
talking in front of people gives me severe
Yeah.
anxiety. Oh, yeah. I'm actually an extreme introvert, so. I don't
They will be.
I know. Well,
How is Paige doing? It's been quite some time since I saw Paige.
she's good. I mean,
Family's good.
yeah, yeah. Her business is picking up. I mean,
I
she's
saw
got,
she's up there doing her own stuff now.
yeah. So she's got 4 members of Congress.
No.
Yeah, like I think 9 state. She's actually just picked up, not just last month. She
Just
picked up
consulting advising or
fundraising consulting.
no kidding.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
She just picked up a city council. Okay, thank you. Guy running for Jacksonville City Council. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, she.
That's awesome.
So at the end, yeah, at the end of last year, she had Jimmy, Dan Webster, Aaron Bean.
I donated all 3 of those.
Yeah, sure, I'm
Through
sure.
Paige.
So she had them, and she had.
She had Bean? I didn't think she had Bean.
Yeah,
I
she's
didn't
had
know she
she's had Aaron since he ran for Congress.
I didn't know that.
It was one of those like I told her I was like you should try to figure out who Aaron Bean's consultant is, and She met him and they liked her, so she's had him since the beginning, which is great because he's an awesome person. But yeah, so but then at the end of last year, she picked up like she met one consultant and he really liked her and was like, hey, do you have any like capacity? So all of a sudden she picked up a guy running for state senate down in Volusia, who then picked up the Senate campaign committee's endorsements. So now it's just like money's flooded in for him, and so she's got one full-time W-2 and then two like 1099 contract employees. I had to take over all of her like accounting, so like I'm now her like CFO and I send all of her invoices. And, yeah, I mean it's crazy.
That's awesome.
So,
Good for her.
yeah, and then our son is 21 months. 21 months old.
That's
I'm waiting until he turns 2 so I can stop
Say
saying
2?
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like
Yeah.
in November I'll say like, oh, he's almost 2. So yeah, and he's great. I mean, he's got such a personality and he keeps us on our toes. So yeah. What's the score?
That's,
Are they
I
not?
really have to know more, I'm not gonna lie. It is 0-0 at the moment. You're welcome to.
0-7.
Oh, 0-7? I missed the score?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
There goes my.
My wife is a huge Bills fan, so depending on how that score goes, maybe I'll just stay here all night.
I'm staring at you like I'm putting my face in your screen. Please.
Okay.
That's what I heard.
Am I allowed to sign this?
Approved tentative.
The resolution as the
I'm signing nothing
Secretary Treasurer.
until you tell me.
Yeah.
What's it say? Is it the one that was in the board packet?
I get paid for this. I'm not getting paid to read the fine print either. Let's go.
I'm not getting paid to read the fine
I
print.
don't get paid anything but heading for diet here, so.
In the meantime, I'll give you
Adopt the
this one.
tentative budget, so
This is a
no.
millage.
See?
We can adopt the millage, yes. This one needs to be revised to say it's the tentative budget as amended, presented at the public hearing.
Okay.
So that would be.
The millage one should be.
The millage one's great.
So for the sake of time, can I write in as amended?
Yeah, I mean, technically, good corporate policy for enforcement.
They could be signed.
They can be signed
Wednesday
after
morning.
Wednesday morning. So you've adopted the resolution, so it's effective, right?
Okay.
So it's up to you. If you prefer we handwrite it, it's really up to how you would view records.
I just want to make sure that I have this documentation and
So
not
why don't we-
reading another.
Do you want? We can sign this. We
Another-
can sign this one, the millage.
Millage is good.
Yeah.
And then, may I borrow the other one? I'll just make the edit. Just millage?
That's millage.
Linda, were you trying to send me to jail today?
No, tomorrow.
I got time for that. I got too many kids for that.
My paper. That's great.
I don't know, I like my kids. Them I'll keep. I'm telling you, I hit 40 and I can't see anything with contacts because that's unnaturally slow.
So I would say we would have, actually this isn't, so, yeah. So then you can sign, then we'll just edit it. If you wouldn't mind making the edits, and then we'll re-sign these on Wednesday so we have a good form for them. That way it's, we've got something in writing, an actual corporate resolution. We're making progress.
Not nothing, I was trying to have my name on
Nice try.
that. Actually, beyond excited that numbers.
Okay. It is.
They scored, we're good.
Bill score?
Yeah.
It's 7:30, so we will resume our regularly scheduled meeting that we were in a prolonged recess. And we will pick back up on the agenda item related to the initiation of the formal executive director's search. where we left this, and I think just to maybe help the discussion is, I had kind of mentioned, I think, having a board liaison to. Oh, it's blinking, yeah. Oh. No, you're okay. Do I have to repeat everything? Okay. Because it's not going to come back the same. So when I've done these in the past, the reason I mentioned a board liaison is not to take the board out of it, but is for somebody to help drive the day-to-day on it. So things like working with staff to kind of craft what an RFQ, RFP would look like. Bring it back to the board to say, here's what we're looking for in an executive search firm. Then the board can offer suggestions and additions to it. Then when it's approved, the board liaison would essentially, when any of the evaluations come in, they're just kind of our day-to-day since we can't talk to each other, versus if we don't allow that to happen, we literally have to wait till a regularly scheduled board meeting to then approve all of these different steps, and it'll prolong it. If you think about it, we're looking at probably, if we did this today, the board liaison could work with staff, and we were already looking at maybe some other airport authorities that have contracts already out there that we could piggyback. We could bring it back for the November board meeting to then approve, put out there publicly to get search firms to submit proposals. That process you're going to want to give at least 30 days. But probably by the January board meeting, we would be able to select that search firm and then let them build out kind of what they want. So that was just the reason why I brought up the idea of a liaison, so we can approve, we can approve that we are going to do the search. We can approve who a board liaison would be, give them some direction to then bring back to us at the next board meeting. And we'll keep it very in the open, but just the day-to-day allows somebody else to help. Again, that was just my thoughts, but we'll open it up to any other. Mario, I think you had.
Well, is there maybe a more efficient way of doing it? Because I anticipate it might be contentious, and so personally, I have a vested interest in want to make sure it's done well, but I would not want to be in that liaison position. But I would like an executive search firm that we could entrust together to almost unilaterally bring us some recommendations that we can very expeditiously approve.
Yeah, so you got to remember the problem we've got is as a government, we can't just sit here and say today we're going to hire X firm to do it. So that's where there is some day-to-day that unless somebody on the board wants to, craft the RFQ, RFP and do that, and then worry about sending it out, it's just, but sorry.
So, I think, I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate what you're saying. I think that it's important that we have that liaison, because we run the risk in this board of too many cooks in the kitchen. And while we all are extremely invested in this, speaking from someone who did the search without a search form the second time we did it, because that's what we voted on, and then I went through every single resume and I attached a number, so I took all the faces and all the names and everything off those resumes, and I brought them to everybody, and I was still accused of not doing it properly. So, I have a little PTSD from that. So, by doing this, I think that we're taking away that kind of from each of us, that one person is doing this, but there's no decision space. So if we want to see every resume that's out there, we're still going to see that. But it stops 5 of us calling this search firm with the same question. And I only say that because I've seen it happen, and I would really, truly love to move forward and do things the right way. And I think that might be the best way to do that, trusting that these 5 strangers to each other are not going to abuse that in any way, knowing that we're all here for the best for the airport. And then when we make that phone call with those questions, or maybe we all have a question and we bring it to that liaison, and then they, at our meeting, and that one person calls, and it works the way that it's supposed to, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done something like this before, but it was an engineering RFQ. I was selected by the board to go in and look at the, submissions and just kind of rank them and just get some data. And then, kind of brought that back so there could be some summaries. And it was, so those are the sort of day-to-day blocking and tackling. I totally agree, having the one appointed board member for those roles is the way to do it. And keep it moving, because also waiting to only do it and noticing. I would say though, I'm concerned about conflict of interest in the process, and I'm more comfortable if possible to have the board liaison with the council on the RFP, plus also getting the liaison part of that was because job posting did not go to all of the top known job posting sites, so it just wasn't visible.
Yeah.
And then, the next time around, it just kind of stopped.
Well, so that's, I mean, it seems like there could be value in a search firm, not to, say that I mean, we can't prejudge, so, you know, but I think, yeah, so I think the appropriate thing is let's move forward, with, engaging, well, yeah, we're gonna engage a search firm, whether it's through a solicitation or piggybacking. And I think we need a board liaison. So, do we have a motion to, appoint a board liaison?
So point of order,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, welcome. Because this is a board liaison, this is effectively a committee.
Okay.
So you have appointment power under Robert's rules.
Okay.
So you do not need a motion or vote per se for things like this.
Oh, okay. Well, I will at least open it up, like, would anybody like to volunteer for being the board liaison before I just start unilaterally?
That's why you point of order.
Or I
So-
will,
Well, so the,
Speak wisely.
just having done that sunshine training, if this liaison is to be making recommendations, technically every meeting they have, or would that not follow sunshine? Did I misunderstand that?
No, so this liaison would communicate with staff and work to get the information that the board directs the liaison to get. The liaison would then bring it back to the board, to your point,
For recommendation.
for a recommendation, review, and comment.
so essentially we would, you know, monthly have a report on the board liaison for the executive search, to be able to communicate. So, it sounds like you might be interested, you're looking away.
No, I was just looking at somebody.
They're all looking down this way.
who you're looking at, but it's not me this time. I'm kidding, I will if no one else wants to, but that will not be my first choice.
I do it, understanding that my views on Mr. Pittman are very public, that you may choose to pick someone else, but I would.
I think in fairness, and we've just met, I think in fairness, since you brought that up, it probably would be fair to say, let's use somebody else. And
Right.
Please don't take any offense to that.
I don't.
So, what do you think?
I'll do it.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we'll appoint you as the board liaison, and initiate the formal executive director search. And I guess all of staff is at your disposal to work with. General counsel already has been pulling up some stuff, so I think you can also rely on them to,
Absolutely.
you know, assist with that. And then, what we probably want is for the November meeting to have what are our options with either doing a formal RFQ solicitation versus piggybacking. So I would hope that we could, in the November meeting, be able to just approve whatever that direction is going to be to move forward. So, okay?
On that topic,
Yes.
before we move on, still, I think we do need to probably have in compensation analysis an interim contract for our interim director.
Thank you for bringing that up. So, I asked the question, like, what posture are we in right now? And let's assume that there is no contract, because that's like the worst case, is to assume that there is no actual employment contract.
It has been no contract.
Yeah, and so how are we operating it? Is that we essentially is an at-will employee getting paid a salary that is somewhat maybe not approved or not. So we should resolve that. We don't want to be in a gray area where we're in the worst case of there is nothing passed.
I think that puts us in a good spot too, because I want to make sure that we're in a posture where there's no ramifications for Mr. Pittman.
Well,
we haven't fulfilled something as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the comments were well taken about, the 3 that were appointed and the 2 that remain are, what I've just seen in the couple hours we've been together, very focused on the future. Let's stop talking about the past. One requirement of the future is that we've got some consistency. We portray that we've got our house in order, that we're investing in our employees, that there's no question as to what at least the next couple of months look like. we have publicly said that we're going to do an executive search, so that is, that elephant is out there now. We are on the search. Now, whether or not Mr. Pittman, proves that he should get the full-time position or somebody else comes up, that's to deal later. But for at least the next couple of months, Mr. Pittman is the interim executive director, and he's got staff that need to be trained, and we've got an airport that needs to be maintained and ran. So we need to today just put that on paper and resolve it. And we know that at some point we'll have a decision on who is the executive director moving forward. I was going off the assumption, Mr. Pittman, based on the document that I have, that the salary that you have been getting paid is $306. Is that accurate?
300 plus your 500 a month.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a 300 base, and then the 500 a month as an educational stipend, which is
Be
gonna go
no
away.
more, right, so 300 a year.
Okay. I would be okay with keeping that consistent for the remainder of this interim status. But I'm just one person, I open up to everybody else for comment.
Well, part of my negotiation is, at one point, Mr. Pittman showed me a document that had 360 on it. And if we were to move forward with anything, I think there might be a negotiation period where we clarify and make sure there's not a expectation for Mr. Pittman that he's do anything else.
He's shaking his head no.
Okay, well, I want to be clear because I want to move forward, I don't want to have any pre-existing liabilities, blank slate.
Yeah, please, Mr. Pittman.
If I may say it on the record, I'm fine with it. I'm here to work. I've never complained about it, I'm here to work.
Okay. Any other comments or suggestions on?
I think it's too high. I have a lot of objections, some of which I've stated at meetings in the public before. I don't know if you've been briefed on them. And I think it's too high for the market, first of all. And I don't think the board ever approved anywhere near 300 for Mr. Pittman. And I'm, somewhat worried about setting a precedent for whoever the next candidate is coming and saying, well, you weren't paying that guy 300. That's, that plus more for me. I don't think it's a wise move for a lot of reasons. The prior permanent executive director was making, I believe, less than $250,000 a year. So if you adjust that for basic inflation, any interim executive director, Mr. Pittman or not, I think my position would be it's got to be more market, and we don't have data on that market.
I do also want to point out that our last permanent executive director also had a vehicle and housing to us as well. So that's important.
And
because-
a bonus structure as well.
And I'm not saying that whether what we're at now is appropriate or not, but just so you know, he didn't just have that base pay. He also had allowance covered by us, so.
I also want to I agree that it's too high for the market. However, I don't think it's too high given the temporary status of, hey, we could hire in a permanent tomorrow, and then where's he left? Having dedicated, his career to this and building up a team. Also, we have a much larger staff now that he's responsible for. And also, the point of attracting a new director, maybe there's an expectation, but also maybe they'll realize, hey, there's some staying power at the St. Augustine Airport. We want to be the best airport, and we're willing to pony up the funds to attract the right leader. I think that could go both ways.
And I think when we do get a search, that might be a very interesting question to ask whoever our search firm is, if they think that's a risk of having an interim salary.
Yeah.
And as to what, being way out of whack with the market, and do we need to adjust that as before we launch the search? And, I think we should listen to professionals on that, so it's a big concern.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Pittman, because these are all public bodies, so do you have what are some of the airports that are similar in size to St. Augustine Airport in Florida? just, I mean, look, we'll get an executive firm to also tell us, but I'm just curious as we sit here today, if you know off the top of your head, like
Don't use
ranges.
labels.
Yeah, don't use that.
I won't use labels because it's 352,000, so I won't use labels. All right, so let's use Lakeland, let's use Boca. You're gonna pay $300,000 for both of those. And they don't have what we have here. Both of those airports are landlocked. They don't have the runway we have, the footprint we have, the west side of US 1 that we have, north of Grumman that we have, and the other means of growth that we have and the chance of commercial opportunity. But if you do the compensate, I have a copy of the 2024 compensation study. I could order for you all if you wanted to, or if you wanted the firm to do it, the compensation study for this year.
I think there was, the board had asked, I don't know if it was a year and a half ago now, but when we were attempting to do our own search, we tasked staff with getting a compensation study. So there are numbers in our files right now. I got a copy somewhere, but I'm sure staff does too, that looked at airport compensation. The numbers might be slightly stale, but that document exists today at the airport.
That's the document I'm referring to.
And correct me, because I think you told, we're still in like the top 15%.
Correct.
So we're relatively high, but just, I want to put that out there, but it doesn't persuade prior discussion.
Yeah.
That fuel is less.
It would be,
Yeah.
you know,
On top of it, I think it's 270.
I just, I don't wanna necessarily, again, this is just me talking, penalize Mr. Pittman for what may or may not have been a discrepancy in the past. I think the right thing to do is to just stay the course. He's already committed to the port, or the airport, the staff here, he's obviously gonna apply. And I just don't see the need for over the next couple of months to decrease, that what may have been a discrepancy in the past. So, I would open it up for a motion to enter into I guess would it be how would we describe an employment contract or a temporary?
So, to the chair, through the commissioners, my recommendation as council would be to, if the board intends to continue on Mr. Pittman's existing, whatever we're gonna say, 6 months or 12 months until the new hiring of an executive director, it would be prudent to have an employment contract. Therefore, normally what you would do is a board liaison would work with Mr. Pittman to come up to an agreeable set of terms, usually with legal counsel, negotiating with Mr. Pittman's counsel on a satisfactory contract. That contract is then brought back to the board for full review, comment, negotiation in public, which is then either approved or edits are made.
Okay. So we don't need a motion, we just, I can appoint a board liaison to.
You certainly can.
Well, I guess we should get concurrence on the salary.
And
then we
again, yes, I mean,
Okay.
you're, because of the posture we find ourselves in, I don't think, and I'm asking, I don't think there's a signed document somewhere at this point. And there's a lot of debate about that, but we as council have not seen a signed document.
And our charter does have some direction
Yes.
for the board to approve.
Correct.
Specifically approve staff level, so I think it would be prudent to memorialize it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess, can we have a motion to, approve a employment contract with Mr. Pittman through the hiring of a, permanent executive director at a annual $300,000 a year.
Cap it at a certain time.
Well, I said it until we hire a permanent executive director. I mean, because it may take.
May take a year. I mean, I would hope not,
Well,
but can we be the suitor of finding somebody for 6 months?
yeah, we could do that. So if you want to make a motion to approve an employment contract for Mr. Pittman of $300,000 at an annual for 6 months or the hiring of a permanent executive director, whichever is sooner. I guess would be the appropriate way to phrase it.
First.
All right, do we have a second? Oh, sorry.
Subject to mutually agreeable terms and conditions in the actual written agreement would be my only caveat. To make sure that Mr. Pittman has a chance to speak with his counsel and we have an actual legal document.
Yeah, I should have said that, because I was gonna then appoint a liaison to work with council on doing that. So, can we have an amend, so you had made the motion. Can you amend your motion to, subject to agreeable terms and conditions between Mr. Pittman, and council for the
The
board?
authority.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second on the amended motion? We have a second. Any discussion or debate? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none?
Yeah, sorry, I can't, I don't think I'm allowed to abstain. I'm torn on this one. I just don't think Mr. Pittman has been a good steward of the airport, and I think it's, I need to be consistent with my views, so I'm gonna vote no.
Okay. So it's 4-1, the motion carries. I will just, I'll appoint myself to be the board liaison to work with Mr. Pittman and council to finalize that. And I think we can tell the board that it should, by November. Okay. Yes, sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't get number 2.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to propose an amendment to the agenda tonight to prioritize what we really need to hit tonight.
Okay.
And then move the rest to,
Yes.
the future agenda.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Since
So
we're running really, really late.
I agree. Did you have any particular things in mind, or I know what I think?
I went down the list, and I
Okay.
went, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10.
Okay, and remember we have, number 9
Yes,
that we did move up, so.
yes.
So,
I left that there.
so 3, 4, 5, and I'm sorry, can you,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10.
7, 10, and we'll leave 9,
8 and 9.
So as written on the original agenda, not with the 9 being done.
Correct.
yeah, I think, can I
On the
just,
on the original agenda.
yeah, can I just ask that we do keep 9 above 4, because they kind of go together? As a lawyer, I probably should have said, I'm also a lawyer, so, the indemnification policy as official staff and authority officials, I think is important.
And we really can't action 3, 4, or 5 right now until we pass the budget.
No, I think we can do 3, because that's just approving a contract, there's no,
Well, we approve a contract, but the payment of the legal expenses, we can't.
Well, yeah, we can, because that was, those were on the last year's budget, so we can't approve those.
Okay.
yeah, the Ackerman
Four.
is, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 4 and 5 were in last year's budget,
Okay.
so we can approve those.
Correct, I
Yeah.
stand correct.
So, no, we could do consent agenda on 3, 4, 5, and 9. Did you want to have discussion on number 9?
Well, I want to have discussion brief on each,
Okay.
because there was some number confusion.
Okay, then we won't do that. So can we amend the motion to say that we will amend the agenda to cover 3, 9, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10, and move everything else we'll roll everything else onto the next regularly scheduled board meeting?
Can I have a request to keep number 11, the internal control, very short, but I think it's important. Proceed.
Do you want to make a motion then for that?
So a new, a fresh motion?
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
So a move to amend the current agenda, cover items 3, 9, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, and 11,
and continue the remaining items to the next meeting.
Okay, do we have a second?
So I had one minor addition that I was hoping to be appointed for something, which is just oddball. TPO board, we need a liaison, and that was one that I meant to bring up. Sorry, it's kind of important, but it's very quick.
So can you ask, you can ask to amend it to,
Can I amend my
I
motion?
just,
yeah,
I'd like to amend my motion
to just add a TPO
to
appointment?
add TPO appointment.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I think we hit everything on these numbers, so second.
All right, any discussion or debate? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay. Agenda item 3 is the action item to approve the general counsel services contract. The contract has been, and the scope of services have been provided, so we'll open it up to any discussion from the board members.
So the only concern I have was just this emergency with the payroll issue. I feel like that should have been put forth to us very quickly, and it concerned me.
Honestly, I didn't hear about it from anyone at this table, which concerns me. I heard about the payroll issues from staff members and I'm not concerned about this. So I'm just genuinely concerned why we didn't know about it, who it should have come from. It's just concerning. That's a big deal. That's a big chunk of money that I think we should have been made aware of a few months ago.
Is that a question to staff?
If there's any feedback on why I didn't, or why the board didn't hear about it, I would love, did someone tell you not to tell us? Like, I can't wrap my head around why it wasn't brought to our attention. So if anyone has input, I'm open.
I would, through the chair to the board, to the extent that our firm failed to provide that guidance, that is our mistake. That said, I do think clarity is needed around who should communicate these things, as it would not be routine that council would necessarily per se communicate budgetary items to specific board members. If that is the expectation that fell on our firm, we fell short, then I apologize for that and take responsibility.
So typically staff is the one that would tell, not that communication responsibility.
You would inform the executive director who should inform us.
Yes, and I think in fairness, again, through the chair, I think the executive director did, we talked through it. It was I believe, a pretty quick figuring out of how we could get there, to solve the problem. But absent us being directed to tell the board something, we would be, there's no good answer to the board. And to the extent that our firm fell short, that is my apologies.
Well, to be fair, I've never heard a lawyer apologize, so.
You should. She'll tell you I apologize all the time.
And through the chair, so this doesn't happen again, when do we pick up the phone on these matters? Because we've talked about, we're trying to draw that fine line between policy and legal.
This is just me personally. I think on the boards that I've served on, it's really the president or the executive director that kind of handles the day-to-day with the law firm. I think on certain issues, if it really rises to the level that requires a briefing to the board, that should happen, but there should be a little bit of discretion provided. Maybe, I'm going to guess also, and this is just me maybe as a new board member, that because of the weird stuff that was going on, maybe just other things got, forgotten about, or there was other pressing issues. So I fully believe that the general counsel's firm, I have utmost confidence in them to make sure that we do not get into trouble. So a little bit of, Mr. Pittman, if you can just kind of stay on top of any time that they bring you something, and then to you guys, just if it does rise to the level where you're, I think, you know, you guys say the board really needs to know about this, it can be sent in a VCC to all of us, you know, which will then, we won't be violating any sunshine. But I would prefer that, like, on the day-to-day legal issues that pop up, that it just go to Mr. Pittman and he advise the board, you know, if it's something that needs to be advised, you know, that day, or if it can wait until the next board meeting. That'd just be my preference.
So I would agree, I would say that we should be able to reach out though, as needed to our general counsel. And so my overarching question, why I brought it up was responsiveness. And I guess if we're going to approve this, the way that it was postured by Mr. Pittman was general counsel works for Courtney 29 days out of the month and us for 1 day out of the month. And if that's the case, well then I would like to hear his perspective on responsiveness and working with Liva's law firm. If I may.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the law firm works for the board. I think it's that we trust our executive director to run the day-to-day. So that's probably where that comes from. I'm sure that there's lots of boring things that you guys do for us on a day-to-day that I don't want to get bogged down in, but I think to the extent, I do truly believe to the extent that there is a legal issue that needs to be addressed by the board, both Chris, Jeff, and Courtney should all feel empowered to advise the board as it comes up.
Yeah, I agree. Just, I would love, I don't know if we're allowed to, but I would like kind of Courtney's perspective on working with the law firm before we finalize something to make sure that we're agreeing to something. And also, I don't know how long the process this agreement is for. I think it's 5 years, but I wasn't quite sure if there was a.
Let's start with Mr. Pittman, and then we can address the term.
Right, so working together is a process, right? We're coming together during some tumultuous times, if I may. Getting used to each other. It's not like they came here under the best of circumstances, right? And you got an interim executive director, you got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of heavy things. So it's a process. It's just like the military. You throw a bunch of people together and it takes some time for them to get it together. I think we got a good relationship with building trust and understanding and learning how to work with each other as people with different perspectives. So I would say it is professional and well done.
I think the next question was the term of the contract. I don't know if you guys want to speak to it.
The term of the contract, so I believe, I'm trying to pull up the RFP that we originally submitted, so give me a second. But ultimately, at the end of the day, as council, you can terminate us whenever you want.
Without cause?
Without cause.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's in paragraph 14, client's right to terminate.
Yeah, so the term is really,
The RFP said 5 years, but.
yeah, it's like something that was required for all the submissions, but to be 5 years, which I think is was meant as an internal clock for like the airport to have to like put a calendar for the board to like reassess in 5 years, potentially, but it's not driven by the law.
I had another question. No, I've got a bunch, but I read the rates. I thought those seemed like reasonable rates. But then I also understood $15,000 per month. But when I read the contract, it looked like the $15,000 a month was just basically like what needs to be on retainer. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Is it $15,000 a month or is it hourly?
Through the chair, it is hourly. And so the RFP RFP requested us to provide a rough estimate of what the monthly expenditure should be, or we thought it would be based on that time. And at the time, that's what we evaluated it to be, was approximately $15,000 a month. And that will obviously vary depending on our level of engagement requests, things of that nature.
Right, you know, I think some of the emergent issues, like the employment issues, is not even a normal ordinary thing that probably was, that they calculated when coming up at 15,000, so I'm not surprised it's small.
I would think our goal would be to be such a well-run airport that we are only utilizing them for board meetings and like, you know, if we're negotiating a large new contract with an existing tenant and we need their, well, like day-to-day, month-to-month, it's just, you know, coming to the board meeting. So, and I can tell you that those rates are, they are very, very good discounted government rates. So.
Actually, I have a quick question. Would you say that you get, as a firm, excessive amounts of phone calls from us as a whole? Because, so my question, I guess, comes back to, are we leaning on you for things that we don't necessarily need to lean on you for?
I will respond by saying I concur with Mr. Pittman's assessment that staffing is necessary at the airport authority. There are certain things that I think Mr. Pittman very much so is asking us to do that need to be done, that ultimately, if brought in-house, would be a cost savings to the authority.
Any other?
Sorry. One other, if I may, because I'm sure this will come up, so in the interest of full disclosure, when the RFP was circulated and Mr. Roberts tried to hint to it in a professional way, there are a lot of things that need legal attention, true legal attention, not staff attention, not true legal attention. Development projects, leases that have been around, environmental matters, in addition to FAA matters, that I would have the board be aware of the fact that when the initial RFP went out, this was for board transaction corporate work from time to time. However, in digging through this in the past 90 days, roughly, there are at least, I think at last count, how many open legal matters? 15 or 16 open legal matters that need to be addressed.
So, because that's a surprise to at least me on this board, I'm gonna speak for myself, and we can get back to the budget part, I just don't wanna miss this. Do you think that would be a cause for perhaps a shade meeting that we could maybe be informed of these legal matters, or is there anything we could do to know about them? Because I don't know if you know this, but I genuinely hate surprises. So, if you could take those away from me, that would be great.
Yes, so we have provided those with Mr. Pittman, working with Mr. Pittman. We have an ongoing list of those matters. There would be no applicable shade meeting at this point because there would not be anything that would fall under shade meeting. These would all be matters that from time to time through the executive director, he would bring to your attention through a briefing memo and ask us for any more legal input.
Okay. If there are no other questions, would entertain a motion to approve the general counsel services contract with the supplies.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have one question. I read in previous, because I went through a lot of the minutes from the previous boards, and I read somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you had to go through the general counsel to be able to talk to the aviation board. Is that something that, I think I read that in some minutes.
That was something that was, I brought up as a point of best practice in the order, is that when you have a general counsel, part of their job is managing the overall landscape, and you're saying, hey, if you need an expert, go find that expert, manage that expert. And that prevents duplication of efforts. It makes sure that, you know, you're entrusting your general counsel to find a competent attorney in that field that requires a specialty. And that's just how it's normally done. And that's the model. And I support that model. Is what
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think if you have Mr. Roberts on tenure with us, and it's an aviation-related question, I think we should be able to go right to Mr. Roberts. Mr. Walker, do you agree, not agree?
This is a board policy decision, which is not what you want to hear. You were looking for a more direct answer from me. You have two separate law firms engaged. We each have our specialties.
Correct.
If the board desires for us to coordinate with Mr. Roberts directly and then bring him in, we will do so. If the board desires to speak to Mr. Roberts directly, that is also your purview. I can't direct how the board chooses to engage with their legal counsel.
My concern for the preference for that model is more along the lines of, it's more appropriate to go to general counsel for, say, land development work and not to the aviation attorney. So it helps focus efforts where they're appropriate, as well as, you know, and that is one of the big reasons is the right person.
I still stand by my initial statement. If it's aviation related, it should be Mr. Roberts, period. I don't see the way to do that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, just to help out. We work together, we're gonna coordinate things. If you trust us, lawyers actually work to reduce your spend, right? We really do. There is some overlap, and it's my preference that those land lease policies, they take the lead. There is a regulatory overlay to them, but one can be lead and one can just review. So we coordinate things like that. There are some more day-ish to day-ish kinds of things where it's just Mr. Pittman on the phone about some compliance action that he wants to take or the status of things like that. And so generally things inside the fence on an operational basis where there is just, you know, you want to check, we just talk directly. So I think we have a good way of making sure no one's duplicating any effort that way, and we really do work to reduce your spend.
And that's great in-house. And I mean, if you collaborate, once I call you and say, or the board calls you and says, hey, we have an issue, it's aviation related, and you go over here. But my point is, I shouldn't have to go through Mr. Walker or Mr. Kemp to get to you for an aviation related issue.
And I would agree to that. No, there's no gatekeeper function there because we have independent professional obligations to the airport authority, right? So I do have an independent professional obligation to the airport authority that they don't have. Mr. Pittman and I sign the grain assurance applications every year. We both have to sign that pledge. And that's a significant compliance undertaking for both of us. So I think we work it out okay.
I mean, obviously, it's a board issue, so we'll handle it through the board.
Okay.
Yeah, and it actually, you bring up an interesting question, because one of the things that I've talked with Chris about is really diving, and this is probably one of these like outstanding legal issues he's talking about, is we've got to look at the board policies. There needs to be some updates. Like, so for example, I mentioned this to Mr. Pittman, we've got a chair, we don't have a vice chair, we have a secretary and treasurer. So like, let's really talk about, like, should we go to a traditional board model where you've got a chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer? There's some committees that I think we can look at. So this might be a good discussion when we do that. And my personal preference, I mean, me as Nick, do not care if you call Mr. Roberts to ask a question. If it's in the board policy, okay, like, let's address it, but I can't imagine the board policy would be that board members are only allowed to talk to general counsel.
Yeah,
So-
and that is not
Yeah.
what my prior comments meant, and that's not what I'm
In the
suggesting.
minutes?
Yeah, it's like the work is coordinated through, when I say gatekeeper, it's more like, hey, does this need the expert? You know, yes, go get them to work on it, have them do the overlay work for a regulatory, that's who's sort of just quarterbacking the work that's gonna take multiple attorneys. Quarterback is the general counsel. And having that understood is like, for a company, like that general counsel is usually literally the general counsel, the person employed by the company, and does that work, reports, I mean, I've been a general counsel. That's what I'm talking about, not nobody here at the board is allowed to send an email to Mr. Roberts. It's never what I meant to suggest.
I'm not
That's what I'm
criticizing what you're saying right now. All I'm saying is that's what I read in the minutes, and that's the way that I took it.
Okay, well, I
So
may have,
if that's not the way you felt, then
my words
we'll
may
move
not have
forward
matched
from
my
there.
meaning at the time, but, you know, like, I do believe that tight coordinating, having a person responsible for coordination is a good thing.
I'm not denying that.
And that's what I meant, that's the general.
I can
counsel.
only go by what I've read.
Well, and that's fair.
And now
I
that you
said what I
corrected
said,
that, then we can move forward.
Yeah.
How about that?
But, okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, we did have a motion, it was seconded. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Congratulations. Let's jump down to agenda item number 9, which is the establishment of an indemnification policy for authority officials and staff. Is the appropriate person on this you guys or Mr. Pittman? Who's the appropriate staff?
More active duties.
Yeah.
I'll step out on this one. All right, so this was presented to me by one of the board members for, I wasn't gonna say who, for discussion as an agenda item topic.
Okay.
A couple of quick things. One, there's obviously, it is routine that a board would normally have a policy and procedure in place around indemnification, insurance, and everything else, making sure the board members are indemnified in the capacity of their official actions. In prior, we were asked to take a look at whether or not that exists in St. Augustine Airport Authority. There is nothing explicit in the charter or in the bylaws that says that an officer acting in the official capacity of their duties will either be affirmatively indemnified, or will be defended, or pay for cost reimbursements and things of those nature. Obviously, it's a board policy decision is what it would like to do here. However, again, in looking and correlating state statutes around other authorities, that is routinely put forth there, but there's nothing specific in your charter, bylaws, policies, or procedures that says that is the authority. That has led to concerns around not only obviously Mr. Pittman's reimbursements, but also potential reimbursement for former board members. It is our recommendation that the board take a position on this one way or the other. Whether or not they are going to indemnify, defend, and hold everybody harmless. Obviously only if they acted in good faith in accordance with their duties. Or we leave it ambiguous at best.
So I would make a motion that we indemnify, defend, and hold harmless any board members or staff for actions in accordance with their duties.
So you may want to, we need to create that policy.
And I would say that, look,
So maybe do this, let's maybe, if we have a motion, if somebody can make the motion to approve the establishment of an indemnification policy for authority officials and staff, and then authorize the interim executive director and general counsel to prepare and present that policy for board approval at a subsequent meeting.
and I would, in indemnification, I assume that includes the defense and hold harmless.
Yep.
then I so would move that.
Okay, do we have a second?
Move that.
Right, any discussion or debate?
I do have maybe a point of discussion.
Yeah.
What I think our general counsel was stating is that we, if we're going to move forward with this, we should make a specific binding vote, like, as to the former board members, and, is that,
Would it not just count for this point moving forward once we, adopt that policy?
So you can, through the chair, you can make it retroactive. You certainly have the ability to do that. Think of it as a snapshot in time, right? The instant the board puts something into place, it is from that snapshot in time forward. There's nothing prohibiting in the statutes that we've looked at that says you can't make this policy retroactive, which would include former board, former everything, right? I think, to the commissioner's point, making sure we have an established policy going forward so that it's clear is incredibly important. There are lingering legal questions around whether or not certain other costs, fees, and expenses should be indemnified and paid. And there are open demands from the former board members for reimbursement of their legal expenses, which will need to be discussed at some point, I assume, in the future board agenda.
so could we be very clear that if we're making a motion to do this kind of ordinary, policy that's, sounds like it's pretty typical, that it be very clearly prospective only?
We could, but I don't think that I would. I might suggest the defendant hold harmless only is applicable if somebody's innocent. Once they're guilty, right, they would still be due those legal costs.
Well, but to defend means you have to pay
Up
before
front,
you get,
but-
before you get a.
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think you guys can chime in on this. So the way that this typically would work is you're on your own unless and if you've been acquitted, you can attempt to get it back. I share your concerns. When I just heard that there are demands from the prior people to be compensated when there were clearly multiple legal violations. So I would be a proponent of making it prospective from the date that we pass it, looking forward. I also, though, and I'm not super dived into this, there's probably a legal argument, even if we made it prospective, that a former could come back and say, well, but I was acting my official duty, it doesn't matter, so.
Unless they're guilty though, correct?
So through the chair, yes, Commissioner, to your point, right? If it is found that they acted outside the scope of their duties, there would be no obligation for us to defend. The issue that faces the board with respect to those amounts, which we don't even know what those amounts are. We have no idea what they're demanding. They are just, at this point, making demands for fees. What that means, don't have amounts, we got nothing. But ultimately, the question that I think the chair is getting at is, does the board intend to take a forward-looking defense posture, meaning we will hire counsel on your behalf to defend you against certain actions? Or are you going to defend the actions at your own cost? And if it is found that you were right and you acted appropriately, we will reimburse you for the cost of those defenses. There's the nuance there. And so now we're dealing with a nuance within a nuance, right? We're dealing with the policy today, snapshot in time going forward, and how the board wants to handle, what I assume will be forthcoming true demands for reimbursement from former board members. But at this point in time, my understanding is Mr. Pittman and Mr. Kemp have spoken. There is no number. They won't.
Sorry, I guess bunny trail.
Yep.
The former board members, was it conceded that they were guilty?
That's the problem.
No.
That part of
Okay,
their-
so
their-
it's,
part of
so
what
it's
their
just,
fee
so
is-
it's just a question. So, and the reason for that is because if they're guilty, then I think it's a moot point. But if they're not, I would suggest that we have a forward where it's, we will defend anybody, that nuance, that is what my motion would be. And also that it be retroactive, if we would have defended somebody else under the same circumstances, which is the next action item, then I would think rightfully we ought to defend the former board members accordingly. I think it's only fair, otherwise I would likewise say that we shouldn't.
So here's why I disagree with that. Let me put it, my thoughts. So, first, I think requiring somebody to go out on their own and then seek reimbursement if they're vindicated in the court system is a better approach than just, hey, we're gonna front load all this money and we'll see at the end of the day whether or not you're innocent or guilty. So I disagree. I think it should be reimbursement after the fact. The other problem that I've got is I would rather only look prospectively because I think there's legal, I don't think it's 100% clear whether or not the former board member's situation would even be impacted by what we do. And I'd rather not pass a policy that's looking backward. We're a new board. I would say from this day forward, this is how we're gonna handle authority, staff and officials. And we can handle the next board item on our own, separate. But we're a new board. Let's look forward. Whatever happened in the past, let them fight it out, whether or not this policy applies or not. And I think, like Chris mentioned, the law is not 100% settled that we have to have a policy in order for that to even be available to an official member. Am I correct in that, or?
So, through the chair, yes, I want to be clear, there is, the St. Augustine Airport Authority is very unique in the sense that it has its own charter. The charter does not specifically detail these things. For instance, if you look at some other charters of other state organizations, they specifically provide, it says these are things. There is analogous state law for elected officials, which is interesting because we have 3 appointed officials, which is a whole other situation. But there is analogous state law that says elected officials acting in their official capacities will be indemnified by the authority. What we are suggesting is because of claims, because of other things, that there is ambiguity. Ambiguity is never good for lawyers, right? What we are saying is this is a policy decision for the board. Do they want to pay the costs along the way to indemnify? And if the individuals, I'm going to pick on the board chair for a second. If the board chair does something completely, fine and everything else, but somebody says he didn't, do we pay those expenses along the way? Or do we have the board chair, in a hypothetical situation, do nothing but get reimbursed at the end of the process, right? The board has the ability to make that decision. It will not necessarily alleviate a former board member or somebody acting in their capacity bringing suit against the authority, demanding payment and indemnification, maybe upfront, and they don't like our policy and they're going to claim those things. But at least it alleviates the
Yeah, that's where I'm coming from is, let's take care of this current board moving forward, and we'll let the past be dealt with when it comes up, and if there's ambiguity, like we'll hash it out. But I would hate to say, hey, we're gonna pass a policy and it looks backwards. We can address, I understand you want to address the next agenda item, or the number 5, but.
Try not to conflate the two, but it's really hard not to.
Yeah, no, we can do this, we can pass a board policy, we can say, we want to develop an indemnification policy looking prospectively that reimburses an authority member or staff for any act.
I would suggest on the way. I mean, I think that's much more fair to somebody that doesn't have resources or you know, and I know that, you know, why.
Well, here's the problem with that. So, let's say hypothetically, a board member does something pretty horrendous, gets sued in their official capacity. We then spend $250,000 defending them, and then it turns out that they were in fact guilty of it. Now we have to go try and collect off of somebody who you're gonna be collecting $10 a month for the, I mean, that's where I think.
It's part of the legal system, right? Like, you're innocent until proven guilty, so I think the counter to that would be somebody's innocent and then racks up $250,000. Do they have the resources then to, I think you act in good faith assuming they're innocent. And
It's a question, but it's
a type 1 problem versus a type 2 problem. Okay. The other side of the coin, I think, is worse than the first side of the coin.
Mr. Chair, can I have one quick second with Mr. Roberts?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, before I make a statement?
Well, do you mind if we're gonna?
No, continue,
Yeah.
please. I just want to ask a question.
My concern there would be, and I appreciate your concern for each of us as individuals on the board, but
And
us,
staff.
yes, but us as a board, it's our job to protect the airport and the board, right? And so, in my head when I'm looking at that, and I appreciate that because not everyone has the resources to pay, you know, up to $1 million in legal fees, and I can appreciate that. But at the end of the day, it is our job as the 5 of us to protect the airport as a whole, not the individual. And so, while obviously I want to protect each of us, we need to make sure that I would rather write the check after and say, wow, I'm so glad that you were proven innocent, here you go. Versus, hey, I know you were in a really bad position, I know you broke whatever, but now you also owe us X amount of dollars because we tried to defend you and it didn't work. So I think my concern is.
And I can give you a real life example of this. So in a prior role, an elected official was involved in a legal action. They had to hire their own counsel. They ultimately, through a settlement process, were, you could call it vindicated, it wasn't really vindicated, but there was a settlement process that essentially, you know, admitted no wrongdoing, but there was a good resolution, and then they used that to go to their board to say, hey, we wrapped up these legal expenses because we settled and I was essentially vindicated, you know, I want reimbursement for that. And that worked its way through the court system. Board Member Chapman, I agree with you. I'd rather be in the position of let's protect the authority, and in the event that somebody was wrongfully accused of doing something, let them come back and seek reimbursement for all their costs. But we should be in that posture, not be defending somebody, you know, ad infinitum, and then. Again, I'm gonna go back to this, we could end up being stuck with a bill and they will never pay it back.
Yeah, I think there's another aspect here that's maybe getting overlooked a little bit. In most scenarios, when a board member or a member of staff is gonna be named individually, if it's within the scope of their duties, it is highly likely that the airport is also going to be a named defendant. The airport's gonna be doing a lot of the legal work already, and so the individual's attorney is a very good chance that their representation would be, well, let the airport defend the airport, and then with the individual, it might be like, oh, well, when that person gets deposed. Or if there's anything where that airport, where that individual might actually be adverse to the airport. Which would be a weird situation where you've got the airport paying for the legal fees of an individual who the airport believes is literally adverse to the airport at that point.
Well, I mean, specifically with Mr. Pittman's legal fees, it's a different law firm, whereas it could have been our.
Well, I think his is different, but, because I see his more as they were hired to advise because the authority as a whole was brought into an investigation, and he was being questioned.
And he was advising his own legal counsel.
Well, I thought the legal counsel was hired on behalf of, I thought I saw that he was hired by authority.
No, he was advised to get his own legal counsel, and that's something that I don't think, so I think we're actually in a better posture as an airport to kind of have a policy, and I think it's in the airport's best interest.
I agree it's in the board's best interest to have a clear policy, so we have a line that's clear, yes or no, on some of these things that might be stuck in case law, and that's, can be tricky. Just to clarify, yes, there was a meeting where Mr. Roberts said he advised Courtney to get his own criminal defense attorney. I have a problem with that because Mr. Roberts represents the airport, and it would have been inappropriate for him to give Mr. Pittman personal advice. So I don't think that Mr. Roberts' statement should be taken as a statement of the airport. That was brought up at a meeting. I understand those 3 board members were board members at the time, but they declined to prospectively pay for those legal fees. And at the time, Mr. Pittman was going in as a witness.
So doesn't that reinforce the fact that it would be better for the airport, board, staff, and airport as a whole, that our general counsel would be the one to defend proactively, or different word, as opposed to everybody going and getting, their most expensive, best legal thing, and then coming back on us and it's being.
It's a choice, because I also went to talk to the state's attorney's office. I did not hire a personal attorney to go with me. A lot of people went in as witnesses, did not hire counsel. It's not required to hire counsel to go give testimony in a criminal investigation.
You are an attorney, though.
Sure. But my husband also went, he's not an attorney. Plenty of other people went, they're not attorneys.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So are we able to say, yes, we want to do this tonight, like, right, we can vote that we want to move forward with this? We don't have to agree on the policy at this moment, is that correct?
Yeah, what we were gonna do is direct, staff and the general counsel to craft the policy and then bring it back for approval. So what we could do,
Because it sounds like we all kind of want it,
Yeah.
just maybe not the
So what-
details of it, and
so
that would
what-
be good.
yeah, what we could do is have, general counsel provide 2 options, for further debate, because we are not gonna, we're burning time here,
So
so.
we're getting really close to my.
So why don't we just,
So I'll amend my motion.
okay,
So I make a motion that general counsel will draft 2 policies for us to come, and maybe it's a 2x2 matrix, to come forward with the option of reimburse as you go, or I'm sorry, pay as you go, or reimbursement after the fact, and forward moving or retroactive, and come to us at the next council or at board meeting for our vote, debate, approval. Is that an acceptable motion and clear?
okay, do we have a second?
I second.
Okay.
And just point of information
Oh,
for the board, we're gonna talk with Mr. Pittman and Mr. Roberts. There is a policy, called Public Officials Errors and Omissions Policy. We've not been asked, or are we going to review said policy? You have insurance brokers and everything for those things, but we have confirmed that's in place. Presumably, and I would encourage board members to get a copy of the policy, to read it, to make sure you understand what is and is not covered in the scope of that policy. But that coverage is in place. So one thing which we quickly talked about is if you did the pay as you go, presumably the insurance would kick in and they would issue what's called a reservation of rights letter, which means they may defend and then come after them for the cost, fees, and expenses. But at the end of the day, this is still a policy decision for the board. It's claims history and all those wonderful things. So go ahead.
Well, all right, so we've got a motion properly seconded. Any more discussion on this, everybody? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. The motion carries. We look forward to the presentation next month.
Yeah, I would, I think just comment that in the proposed budget that we just looked at, staff enumerated the policies that were covered in that budget. don't think that a E&O policy was included there, so that would
It's
be.
in our insurance policy though.
Yeah, it was in there.
It was in there?
Yeah, I've seen it,
Okay.
in the documents.
All right, then when he listed them out, I didn't hear it, so.
Yeah, cause I remember looking, I think it was a $2 million.
2 million per.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So,
Is, okay.
Okay, let's go to, agenda item 4, board's consideration, and vote on payment of legal expenses to the Bedell firm, for Mr. Pittman. Open it up to, well, I guess one thing I would quickly ask is, I did notice in the letter, that the letter says that the airport will compensate if no wrongdoing.
For what?
So it says, we understand that the St. Johns County Airport Authority will be responsible for our fees and expenses only so long as you are not found to have committed any criminal or civil law violations. So that, and I don't know where that came from, but, I mean, that's at least in there. And again, this is just their representation letter, so it's not
I can,
binding on us, but.
well, I can give some additional information. I also don't know where that came from. But there, at the board meeting where Mr. Roberts said, I told Mr. Pittman he should hire, and he mentioned, the attorney by name, so I have a name. Like I advised Mr. Pittman to go hire this attorney for his own personal representation, and I think the board should ratify that and agree to pay these upfront. That did not get approved. I subsequently emailed Mr. Barksdale and specifically informed him that the board had not approved any such outlay of funds. So I don't know how that got into an engagement letter, because that's, I can provide the email where I let him know that that was not something the board had agreed to.
Real quick, sorry, with the E&O policy, would they be on the hook for this?
Through the chair, we have not reviewed, been asked to review or opine on those policies, and I would defer to the executive director as to whether or not that should be taken as orders.
I mean, I heard, but, I mean, I would rather they pay $22,000 than we pay $22,000, or no, and why not?
So the insurance steps in when you're being sued. So since there wasn't a cash value attached to this, as in I'm going, I'm getting a lawyer because I'm being personally sued, then the insurance doesn't activate. The insurance only activates when there's money involved.
Quick clarification. I think Mr. Pittman is on the right track. My suspicion, without having read the full policy, is that absent an affirmative claim against Mr. Pittman in a legal proceeding, the policy would not kick in. My understanding from reviewing the meeting minutes is this wasn't any official proceeding. It was stemming from the actions of former board members where there needed to be discussion around what Mr. Pittman should or should not say on behalf of his, or excuse me, in his personal capacity as executive director. So.
Mr. Chair, if I could just.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, just for some context. I was the one that recommended Mr. Pittman retain his own counsel. It was in the airport authority's best interest for that. And here's why. Extraordinary circumstances of the board members that sat here every day that he worked for, were being investigated. It was a very broad-ranging policy. I sat here and asked every employee to cooperate with the state attorney's investigation. Mr. Pittman was a central fact witness. A central fact witness. And the success of the investigation, I don't think could have occurred without his fulsome cooperation. I can't tell him to go cooperate. It's a conflict of interest. I worry about the airport authority. I can't worry about him in his personal capacity. So he needed that protection to successfully interact with the state attorney's office. That was borne out when one of the indictable offenses was coercive witness tampering. And he had a lawyer to roust up on a Saturday morning and say, I need to tell you what just happened. And what are we gonna do? What should we do? And what should we do is contact the state attorney's office. So there is, I see two things. What was vetted during Mrs. Lacadera's tenure as the temporary counsel, the precedent for this is well established. It's happened many times when he pays and writes a check, his own money, and then seeks reimbursement. If there's some concern that he has unclean hands, or that he's done something wrong, or anything like that, I'm aware of nothing that way. Everybody that knows what happened hasn't talked about it. Right? The people that know what really happened haven't talked about it because their lawyers have told them not to talk about it. And so if there was something I thought on the subjective merits of this, I would tell the board. He testified 3 different times, and at some point, the state attorney's office quit sending us subpoenas. They quit asking him to come just testify. They just called us, and they began a working relationship almost daily. It was a very wide-ranging, exhaustive investigation, and it was successful because Mr. Pittman got counsel on how to navigate all those issues. It was in our best interest for that to happen, and it worked out. And so I just share that with the board. I would make that recommendation to him again, and I think it was successful and it was well-reasoned and justified.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or thoughts?
I do have a comment. I think what we approve sends a message, and, people read prosecutorial summary, and Mr. Pittman's involvement with those 3 board members and the illegal actions. It was, voluntary actions on his part to help them break the law, which is harmful to the airport. And I understand he didn't break sunshine law, but he was a witness to it. He didn't go to law enforcement. He didn't go to general counsel. None of that came to light until the blogger law firm resigned and started off the investigation, and the law enforcement contacted Mr. Pittman. So when I looked through that prosecutorial summary, I did not see anything in there in his testimony that suggested that the facts that he was providing testimony on were within the scope of his duties as executive director. Helping board members break the law is not in the job description. And so if the whole premise of reimbursement fees is helping staff and board members from, court fees and things because they were acting in the scope of their duties and they got caught up in something, that I see, but nothing that I read suggested that was what was going on.
So, as an understanding though, I think what Chad was saying, what I perceived, was his advice to obtain legal counsel was not for the benefit of Courtney, but rather for the benefit of the airport board, so that Courtney would cooperate in a place that put the airport in a better position. Courtney could have easily been uncooperative, but having legal counsel for the board and the airport in a better position is, I think, a fair summary of what Chad was saying.
And I agree to the extent that, by saying cooperating, Courtney would go, I went through the same process. You go in, you get sworn in, so you're giving testimony to the state's attorneys, investigators, you're under oath. So if he had decided not to cooperate and not provide truthful testimony, he literally would have been committing a crime that would have been worse than the sunshine violations.
If it didn't have to be cooperative and he didn't have to lie, but having an attorney helped position the airport in a way where we had a good working relationship with the Inspector General.
And we also called other times. It wasn't just when he went in for the deposition, if I'm correct, right? Like, there were additional phone calls that happened periodically that he still would have needed.
Well, $21,000, I'm assuming it was more than one, walk into the state's attorney's office.
He's not getting good rates.
But if the point is like, you know, he needed a criminal defense attorney to help him navigate not catching criminal, his own, you know, committing his own criminal actions, like by, you know, not being truthful or something. I'm not saying he was, I believe he was truthful, but he had independent criminal attorney to help him, quote unquote, navigate this. I gotta think it's because he felt he had potentially his own downside, and that would, ergo mean he was not working the, I just can't.
That's just your.
I can't square the circle of saying that, you know, criminal acts are somehow inside the scope of your duties.
And this is precisely why, in my policy, I want to have payment moving forward, because if this is how reimbursement works, where it's subjective to assuming somebody was acting nefariously, then that's not a comfortable policy that I have. I think it's clear cut. He wasn't convicted of doing something wrong. We need to have a policy for this, and I think we very explicitly should be covering it.
He wasn't even accused of doing anything.
Right.
I mean, I think that's where I'm kind of getting held up on this. Mr. Pittman was never accused of doing anything. He retained legal counsel so that he could better protect the airport. And as I said 5 minutes ago, I don't know, maybe an hour ago at this point, that's our job. The five of us are to protect the airport. It sounds to me like that's what Mr. Pittman was doing, was protecting the airport.
No,
So-
because his personal attorney was his personal attorney. Mr. Barksdale was never engaged to represent the airport. Nothing in that is a separate.
But he was there to represent the executive director of the airport as the position.
Well, because at any point during that representation, and I, you know, there was a possibility that what if, you know, let's shift it to a different scenario and stop making it so specific to Mr. Pittman. If someone gets called in as a witness, they get their own independent counsel, they talk to their independent counsel and say, oh, by the way, I was also doing these other things that were literally harmful to the airport, then that person's now adverse to the airport. So just because, you know, there was a possibility in every one of these representations that we're talking about, where we're dealing with someone who's really truly adverse to the airport.
But the presumption is innocent until proven guilty, so I think that's operating with a bad presumption.
I agree. He was not accused of anything, and now we're just assuming that he may or may not have, like, you can't say, let's make it about not him, because that's specifically what this agenda item is
Yeah,
about.
so if I can maybe add some, because I'm hearing everybody talk. I think the biggest mess up was not having counsel advise all employees in their official capacities. So in a perfect world, and this isn't gonna happen with this board, but in a perfect world, if something happened where the state attorney's office was looking into airport actions, we would come to general counsel and have legal advice for all employees on cooperating, let's do our due diligence, let's figure it out. And there would be at least a sense of, hey, the airport authority has got counsel for you in your official capacity to help us work through this. If you think that you've done something and you need your own counsel, like, you go do that on your own dime. We didn't have a perfect world, because I don't think, well, the general counsel quit. And so you had, you know, Mr. Roberts trying to advise the best he could, but, I mean, there wasn't great representation to say, you as a airport authority employee are going to cooperate, you're gonna work through the general counsel's office, and here's what we're gonna do, and if you think that you need some personal representation, then you should go do that on your own. So I think there's kind of I think everybody's kind of right to a certain extent, because the questions that were brought to Mr. Pittman were in your official capacity, what did you see go on with board members? And, you know, whether or not there was anything else that might have bled into that he should be personally concerned about criminal activity, like, then maybe there's an issue, but I agree.
I don't think even then there's an issue.
Well,
I think that's explicitly why we're saying we need to have a policy to defend, because we're assuming an innocence.
no, but what I'm suggesting in a hypothetical where I think board member Chapman had mentioned kind of, like, you're doing everything and then, or maybe it was you board member to do it, and as you're talking, you're now like talking yourself into, ooh, you actually did commit a crime there, as yourself. So I think there's a difference of, if you're being asked questions about what did you see in your capacity with board members, that is protecting an employee during a criminal investigation. If that turns into that they say, you know, oh yeah, and by the way, board member X, you know, handed me $500 so that I could go do this. Now it's the airport authority attorney can no longer represent you in this. You need to go hire your own. So I say all that to say, I think in this circumstance, well, not the best way to go about hiring a law firm to represent employees. It was done to ensure that all of the bad was out there, that the state attorney's office knew what was going on, and they could then go down their course. I agree with you in reading that, and I think Mr. Pittman has probably done some self, looking, kind of what happened and how he should handle things in the future. But he wasn't charged with anything. The airport authority was providing information. It's a new day. Again, I'm just one vote, would be to, let's just pay the bill and move on. We will then at the next meeting have a discussion on what an indemnification policy will look like moving forward. We can hash out again the retroactive or prospective, but even though it wasn't handled right in getting one of our employees an attorney, I think the right thing to do is just pay it and move on, and then we address moving forward.
We'll consider this good precedent.
Well, yes.
You can consider it good precedent.
I think the nuance there, and I completely agree, thank you for pointing it out, is that Mr. Barksdale was hired from the Algo as Courtney's personal attorney. It would have been much more preferable for the board to have said, we will get airport counsel to represent Mr. Pittman and any other cooperating witness.
Yeah.
And the second there's some facts that come up that would suggest that person's actually not aligned with the airport, then they have to get their own. That, I agree, that's the process we should have. We should protect our employees, and when they're brought in to testify or something within the scope of their duties, it makes complete sense for airport counsel to be there for them in that capacity. I think I would not want to use this messy kind of situation as precedent that anybody should just be able to go hire their personal attorney whenever because we pay for it once.
Well, I'm with you on that.
I just want to point out, I'm sorry to interrupt everybody, but it's after 9 o'clock at this point.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to either get a move on things or wrap up,
Also,
and get some workshops
Do
going.
we have a motion to approve payment of the Dell law firm?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any comment or debate? Not that we've already had. We need a comment or debate. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next up is agenda item number 6, and I do think we need to get these ones out because these are paying bills to law firms, and even though I think Cindy would understand, let's just get this off the books.
She's retiring in like a month, so.
Yeah.
she'd like this to-
So quick item on this, the amounts were not right. My understanding is it's $147,000, and I need clarification. On the letter, it says 162, here it says 118, but when I talked to Courtney to give clarification, I think I have a very clear understanding. The board at one time had authorized $70,000. 28,000 was paid, and that's afterwards the 162 bill came. Then subsequently, the remainder of the 70, roughly 42,000, was paid, and I might have the exact amounts off, which reduced that 162 to maybe 120. And then, I'm sorry, no, it got it down to the 118. Is that?
That's what's on the.
Oh, no, and then another bill came in.
There's
for-
two.
And then another